In 2020, everything changed. And while many sports shut down, horse racing persevered. Now, the best thoroughbreds in the world have come to Keeneland in search of a victory at the Breeders' Cup. And TVG will bring you every moment as these contenders make their final preparations to compete on racing's biggest stage. Welcome to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
This morning at Keeneland Racecourse, it was the type of morning that the first polar explorer, Roald Amundsen, could have appreciated. It was cold, so cold that they had to wait to open up the racetrack until about 7 a.m., literally just moments ago, because the racetrack was thaw. And one of those horses out on the track today, Lord North. How appropriate. The John Gosden trainee who took the Prince of Wales earlier this year at Royal Ascot is here in the United States for the Breeders' Cup Turf. Welcome to TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm in Keeneland. I'm Todd Schrupp on our set here. We've established it's the chilliest morning that we have certainly had to date. And as we said, they're just getting back to getting horses out on the track because the track had to thaw. Training track is just opened right now. We've got cameras everywhere. Full team coverage for you as preparations continue to 2 days of championship racing, Friday, November 6th and Saturday, November 7th here at Keeneland. Our team once again on site here at Keeneland. Scott Hazelton, Joaquin Jaime, Gabby Gaudet. Did you just kind of do that little shiver thing? That was very, very good. And then Kate and Bradar. Yeah, it's cold in Louisville too. What happens in the Commonwealth goes all the way across the Commonwealth. And joining us from sunny Southern California, although the sun has not come up yet, but it will be 90 degrees later on in his gated community. So you are not with short sleeves. Simon Bray is at home in Southern California and joining us for our analysis. But we are going to start this morning with some news surrounding the Breeders' Cup World Thoroughbred Championships with Joaquin Jaime.
Hey, Todd, good morning to you. Yes, as you mentioned, we've been roaming the grounds here at Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington for the past 4 or 5 days or so, and it is by far the coldest morning that we have had out here at Keeneland. So many horses are going to be staying inside this morning, and that goes the same for Come Dancing for trainer Carlos Martin, who's going to be in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Come Dancing, she had her final workout for the Filly and Mare Sprint yesterday, so today she's just going to stay inside the barn, and she's just going to tack walk with her exercise rider. So Scott Hazelton coming up in just a little bit. We're going to show you a little behind the scenes footage of what it's like when a horse tack walks with the exercise rider when the temperatures are below freezing and they just stay here in the shed row.
And we're going to be doing most of our work down here at the training track because it has been open for some time now, and we've seen plenty of horses from the West Coast come out here and exercise on this synthetic surface at Keeneland, including United, as well as Cece. She's out here right now, Wild Man Jack, as well as Michael McCarthy's Speech. But Gabby, the focus today is the Euros. We've seen 2 big ones out here already. We'll reveal those as the show goes on, but there's expected to be a lot more coming out here stretching their legs for the first time fresh off of quarantine. Caton?
Scott, in terms of the weather, it's slightly warmer here in Kentucky, but not a lot, although the track was in great shape when it opened about 5:15 a.m. this morning for training. Now, it is a Monday, and between the weather and also the fact that it's a dark day, it is not a busy day as far as horses out on the track are concerned. A lot of walkers. We only have a baker's dozen of Breeders' Cup horses left, including 4 classic contenders, but we've already seen a number of them out for light jogs, including 3 of the 4 classic contenders, Title Ready being the very first horse, period, to step foot on the track. He did a light jog. So too did Tom's Data. We're going to check in with El Stall in just a little while. We also saw the trio of horses for Brett Calhoun, including Breeders' Cup Classic contender By My Standards. We'll also check in with Brett as there's great anticipation today toward the post position draw and finally finding out who's in and who's out. Great consequences for sure, Todd.
Well, Caton, so as Todd mentioned at the top of the show, it's very cold here, and the main track has been closed. It has not yet been open. We did have the opportunity to speak to track superintendent here at Keeneland, Jim Pendergast, and he said that his crew has been working this track since 3 o'clock, 3:30 a.m. It's just unfortunate when temperatures get to below freezing, the track is going to freeze. But his crew has been working hard and diligently. He hoped to open the track at 7 a.m., but for the most part, he just really wants the sun to come out so that can help thaw the track. And when we say that the track is frozen, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a sheet of ice or that the track is completely frozen. It just means that there are little clumps on the track such as this. I just picked this up from the track just a moment ago, if you can see. And so there are a whole bunch of little clumps on the track, and they break apart pretty easily, but obviously, Jim just wants to make it a very even and a very safe track for everybody to go out and do their morning training on. So we're still waiting and seeing, Todd. We're actually going to catch up with Jim in a little bit just to have that conversation about what his crew has been doing to get the track at its best. But currently, the main track is closed.
And the sun is starting to come up, so we're going to get a little bit of help from the natural surroundings here. Simon, when you first came to the United States, as we talked about, you worked with Bill Mott, so primarily on the East Coast. You're used to mornings like this. Is it an obstacle for trainers to get through when it's this cold?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I spent several winters up in New York during the winter months, and you really have to have a different philosophy and adapt totally differently to your system of training and the way you go about things. Now, in a situation like this, I think it's just going to be these kind of conditions this morning. It's meant to get warmer as we go through the week, but I don't think it's going to hurt horsemen too much, and here's a couple of reasons why. Many of the horses coming from California and Europe won't do much exercise the first day they're on the track, so they'll just jog. We saw a whole host of workers yesterday. Typically, they'll have a day off anyway, like come dancing, and Joaquin mentioned at the top of the show. So it's worked out pretty well. And thirdly, in the case of Keeneland, they have that synthetic training surface that doesn't freeze when the temperatures get too low, makes it a perfect surface. As soon as the sun comes up, Todd, hits that racetrack, those clumps will break up much easier. You just don't want to take that risk of one of those clumps being a little more frozen than another one and a horse stepping on it. So I don't think it's going to be an issue this morning.
Safety is always the predominant issue, and taking those precautions. We'll get into training hours once again here in just a little bit once weather allows. So let's put a fine point on the weather and make you aware of where we're going to go. And this is almost hard to believe, but this is correct. 48 degrees is the high today. What is the high on Future Stars Friday? It's 20 degrees warmer. It's going to be perfect on both championship days of racing. 68 and clear. No chance of rain on Friday. And then on Saturday, Breeders' Cup Championship Day again, 72 degrees and clear. So we are going to have the gamut of all the weather, temperature-wise, that you can have here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Let's catch you up on what was going out on the West Coast yesterday. Sharp Samurai was out at Santa Anita. Sharp Samurai has been a consistent horse on the turf, and here is a look at his workout yesterday, Simon.
Yeah, this was a very good workout, I thought. He's a good workhorse, and he has just been a model of consistency. He hasn't won this year. Again, he's another type of horse that's been knocking at the door with all these big runners, but he just quite hasn't converted. But I like this workout over the turf course yesterday. It's 5 furlongs. You're going to see, I think the final time was a minute, and he's just galloping. I mean, there is absolutely no encouragement from the rider at all. 1 minute and 2/5. There's no encouragement from the rider at all. I went back and took a look at his previous work, and I'm telling you, if you put him side by side, the work from, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they are identical. I mean, this horse is just, he's doing exceptionally well right now. I think he's a good workhorse anyway. He's going to run a decent race, but my question is he good enough to jump up and take that, win the whole thing? I think he could get a piece of it, but very, very solid work here.
Sharp Samurai with preferences in the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, as well as the Breeders' Cup Mile on the turf, completing 5 furlongs yesterday at Santa Anita. Collusion Illusion for the same barn has been a top 3-year-old sprinter on the West Coast. He was out at Santa Anita as well.
Very sharp work here. This would be considered a blowout work here, 34-3, you know, because you don't want to do too much before these horses get on the airplane and ship east. I mean, the ship is taxing enough, so you don't want to go ahead and do too much. So a short, sharp work here for a sprinter. You can see he's just hanging on that left rein. You see the rider's left hand there. He's just drifting out a little bit around the turn, but once he gets into the stretch there, stays straight. He's in about the 2 or 3 path, and 34-3 here. So he's a very fast horse in the afternoon, and he's a very fast horse in the morning. And, you know, a lightly raced, but does have 5 wins. You can just see that right rein a little looser than the left rein. So he just hang on that left rein a little bit. Maybe that's something he does each and every morning in training, but he's certainly moving well over the ground and making all his lead changes.
Thanks to our broadcast partners at XBTV for a look at Collusion Illusion with his final major work before the Breeders' Cup Sprint in that quick 3 furlong time of 34-3. Improbable getting a lot of attention going into the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, and cameras on him at Santa Anita with his final workout. And if our audience didn't see this previously, Simon, I know you were very impressed with what Improbable did in this 6 furlong drill.
Yeah, I think he's coming into the race in really, really good shape. I mean, his work's emulating his race record. You know, as the year goes on, he's getting progressively better. I've watched a consistent stream of works now from 5 to 6 to 7, and this workout yesterday. He's a beautifully put together horse. I mean, physically, he's got all the attributes, and he moves very, very well. He has a very long stride, and you can see that gives him the ability to get that 1.25 mile distance. And as he comes around the turn here, just very, very fluid. I mean, he's got to be a dream to train and a dream to ride here. And I think he's doing exceptionally well here, Todd. Just wait till he comes around here. And he's almost a throwback, really, with the stride he has. He reminds me of those old the old equine paintings that you used to see of the greats back in the day here. And he's just got that long, lengthy stride. Covers a lot of ground very effortlessly, and that's going to do him very, very well next Saturday.
And Bob Baffert keeps alluding to there can sometimes be an issue at the gate. We have the post position draw later today. Would any post be disadvantageous for him or an advantage?
Well, I think the issue is, I don't know what it is with him. It's on race day. He doesn't do it in the morning. He can stand in there 20 minutes if you want without a problem in the mornings. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the situation is going to be. Obviously, the gate crew know him. I don't think he's a horse that wants to be loaded first. So, you know, one of those inside or outside posts, I think they do double loads at the Breeders' Cup. So I don't think he wants to be standing in there too long would be the key for me.
The 6 furlongs completed and 1:11-2, and he comes in on the greatest streak of anyone in this race. 3 consecutive Grade 1 wins for Improbable coming in, including the most recent start, the Grade 1 Awesome again. It's bubble wrap time for trainer Bob Baffert.
I think he went just as smooth as he always does. He's a beautiful moving horse, and left the pole relaxed. And that's the key to him this year. He's been very relaxed. He's matured. And he picked it up as he went. The further he went, I got him in 59 and change, and out in 11 and change, and out in 24 and change without even any effort at all. And the really good ones, they'll do that, just like Authentic. So I think, you know, coming into this race, I can't really see that, you know, he hasn't gone backwards. He's you know, all you can do by is their class that they've had this year, and if they're breezing like that, that means they haven't lost any conditioning or their fitness, and they're looking great. So I really don't have an excuse for him. I think he'll run a huge race.
So now you just got to get him here safely, and Improbable we know can travel, having won Grade 1s on both coasts, up in New York at Saratoga, and then obviously at Santa Anita last time out. Back here at Keeneland, we check in with Scott Hazelton.
Yeah, for the international report, Todd, and as mentioned yesterday and even right now at the top of the show, this is the hub of the international scene for the morning because we are going to have 26 European horses that have cleared quarantine. Now, several of them have already come out. We saw Lord North, the Royal Ascot winner. We saw Kamiko, the Guineas winner, already out here. They came out, did a very light jog the wrong way around this synthetic track, just stretching their legs off of the quarantine that they've been in over the past 42 hours, which was cleared just yesterday. And Tarnawa also out here as well, just stretching her legs for Dermot Weld, who said that this is his biggest opportunity to pick up a Breeders' Cup win here in 2020. So, Todd, as we mentioned, we're going to do most of our work down here and give you as much visual of these European horses. I'll tell you one horse, though, that really caught my eye watching her train. It is Roger Varian's Nazuna. She is a juvenile filly turf prospect who will be running here. She had just a classy look to her and took it all in stride. Of all of the European horses that we saw, I'll be clear, I didn't get a good look at Kamiko as well as Lord North because they only passed by us once and they were all with ponies. But Nazuna, she made quite the impression on me down here at the training track. And we'll give you our impressions over the course of the morning as more file through this synthetic track here at Keeneland.
It is nothing short of remarkable, the European contingent that we have at this year's Breeders' Cup, given how the global pandemic has affected everyone around the world. European participation as strong as it has ever been in previous Breeders' Cups, and they're bringing over quality horses as well. Multiple Group 1 winners represented, and those horses will be coming to the United States for the first time at the Breeders' Cup. And to commemorate this Breeders' Cup, earlier this year, Breeders' Cup and Maker's Mark announced the 2020 Maker's Mark bottle would feature legendary Keeneland and Breeders' Cup president Ted Bassett III. Proceeds will support Old Friends, National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame, and Racetrack Chaplaincy of America's COVID-19 relief efforts. This is a bottle you're going to want to have for a phenomenal cause. Go to breederscup.com/charity for champions for more info. And then to benefit the permanently disabled Jockeys Fund, Maker's Mark has put out this commemorative bottle for the 2020 Breeders' Cup here at Keeneland Racecourse. Great souvenirs for phenomenal causes. Speaking of phenomenal, it has been a outstanding year for the 3-year-old filly Swiss Skydiver. She beat the boys and the Preakness, and we are going to introduce you to Swiss Skydiver and tell you about her background, as well as talk to trainer Ken McPeak. That's coming up on TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by Windstar Farm and Keeneland.
TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. is presented by WinStar Farm and by Keeneland.
In at the rail, authentic on the outside, these two putting on a show. The Derby winner in the filly, Swiss Skydiver inside, authentic outside, they're nose to nose, all the way to the wire, and it is going to be a photo finish. Was it the filly, Swiss Skydiver? I think she did it.
Well, it's already been 5 weeks since Swiss Skydiver made history, becoming the 6th filly to win the Preakness Stakes for trainer Ken McPeak. And on paper, she's already far exceeded her expectations. At just a $35,000 purchase, she now has 6 wins, a couple grade ones, and earned over $1.7 million in her career. But who is this filly? How would you describe her? Trainer Ken McPeak tells us more, beginning with how she got her name.
Peter Callahan's granddaughter went skydiving in the Swiss Alps, and he named her Swiss Skydiver after Callie. Callie's had a blast with this. Peter always comes up with a good name for most of his horses, and this one I think he hit it right. In the beginning, I'll be honest, she was kind of under the radar. She was a filly that did everything right every day. She was a filly that never turned a hair, very professional. And even today, I think the best way to describe her is probably workmanlike.
Full gallop, 16th pole.
In our barn, we try to have consistency with what each horse does every day. We want things to be timely. In her case, she likes to go out early.
She's a creature of habit. Routine, routine, routine. Send her out at the same time, bring her back in at the same time, feed her at the same time. She's like clockwork.
She's a leader. She's definitely a leader. She gets upset when she's not the first one out in the barn, and competitiveness. Like, she don't want to lose. She don't know she's a filly, actually. I don't think she knows she's a filly.
I think this is her coming down the backside.
She's not so much tall as she is wide, but it's not so much height and length. It's just all one big compact machine. And she's strong, extremely strong. I think one time this winter, she weighed in at 1,145 pounds. I mean, that's a really big filly.
Appreciate it.
I think it's unique the way that the calendar unfolded all year. We had times where we didn't even know where we were going to be running, when we were going to be running, who was going to be open. But the fact that the schedule unfolded to her benefit and the timing was good and she was right and ready has been a magical year. Come on, Mama. Here she comes. If she even hears a rapper, she's popping her head out because she thinks it's a peppermint. If she sees somebody standing there, she's sticking her head out, just checking to see if you got anything. So she's a little bit spoiled. We try not to overdo that too much, but more than anything, she likes to get in that feed tub every day, and I think that's been one of the main reasons we've been able to campaign her all year, because she's such a good doer. I've had a lot of good ones over the years, but this one's, she's taken us to another level for sure.
Owner Peter Callahan is 78 years old. He has pre-existing medical conditions, so he hasn't been able to travel to watch Swiss Skydiver, but he has watched all of her races here on TVG. And Simon, even in a normal year, if Peter Callahan could travel, I'm not sure he'd go to the 9 racetracks that she's been at. It's phenomenal. 9 starts this year, all 9 different racetracks. The only repeat will be right here at Keeneland when she comes back here for what we learned earlier this week was the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. But I just don't recall a campaign like this, 9 different racetracks and 9 starts.
Yeah, I mean, she's just an unbelievable throwback. That's what we like to say, horses of yesteryear, and she emulates that. You just don't see it anymore in this day and age. And Kenny McPeak has taken the ball and he's run with it. The only month she didn't run in April, And it just shows her versatility and how strong she is. And I think the key there in that package, I keep referring to it, how well she eats, because that maintains, you've got to fuel the engine, right? Not only are you running at 9 different racetracks, you are also traveling to 9 different racetracks as well. And one last point, how about the return on investment? 50 times the return on investment. She was a $35,000 purchase at Keeneland September 2018. She has made $1.7 million thus far, and she's not done. 50 times the investment as of this morning.
Yeah, the big purchase prices at the Keeneland September sale always get noticed, but there are so many bargains to be found there. And Keeneland graduates winning the biggest races all over the world. And from that 2018 class, Swiss Skydiver is an absolute star. Let's get out to Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. Kate and Bradar.
Al Stahl inviting us into the warmth of your office, which is much appreciated. But Tom Stata was out first thing in the morning and kind of did what he normally does, that nice long jog. Tell me what you're seeing from him.
We like what we see with Tom. He's been, he's been very good the past month. Today was no different. Today was his first day back off of his last blowout on Saturday, so we just walk him on Sunday, jog today, do some galloping during the week, and run Saturday. So he's in his normal routine, his normal rhythm. He knows it. He knows something's coming up. He feels it. We all feel it. We're excited about everything. He's getting some new shoes this morning, which he really likes. And he goes well with some fresh shoeing, and everything's coming together at the right time.
Well, we're so used to seeing horses with these fast workouts to get ready, but this is a horse you've had for the duration and the long haul, and a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of miles spent. Talk about his work and the decision to go the distance that he went, the style that he went, and particularly, I think, the comments that you told me after the work in terms of it reminding you of another classic contender's work.
Well, he's an older horse who had done a lot of work in his previous 2 works. He went 3/4 of a mile in 1:13, and he came right back with 3/4 of a mile in 1:12 and 4. And I just think that's enough for him. He's got some age on him. He's had surgeries. It's well documented. And I just thought going out and stretching his legs, and I think the last thing in the world he needed was a 59 or a 47, and he just went out there and was lost by himself, which he'll do that. That's why he wears that shadow roll, because he will look at things and gawk, and he just cruised around there and just was happy about it, and that's kind of what we do with him.
Are you concerned at all about the time in between races, the layoff? I know the scheduling wasn't ideal as far as the way the races fell for him.
No, not at all. He runs well fresh. After the Whitney, that was really our gut feeling what to do. Just wanted a horse to come in and who's got a history of running well off the bench, and you just hate to run in a prep race 28 days or maybe even 35 days. I guess there was only one race 35 days out. It would have been like the Pimlico Special, and we just weren't interested in that. And so he's going to run a good, hard, fresh race. We've seen that before. I just would hate to have him do something too close to race, and then you're saying to yourself, well, did something, you leave something on the track too close to race, kind of like years and years ago. I'm not sure what year it is. You're a historian. Aptitude for Bobby Frankel was stable. They were stable next to us, and when he won the Jockey Club Gold Cup, I said, "Man, congratulations, Bobby. That was great." And he was like, "We're dead," And he was right. He won the Jockey Club Gold Cup by about 8 or 9 lengths, and favorite in the Breeders' Cup, and he was just kind of flat. So we wanted to kind of stay away from that, and I think everything's really, we haven't missed a day of training or anything. We just were patient the month of August and September and started his works back up, and he's hit every work we've wanted, and I'm comfortable, and the horse seems comfortable, so it doesn't even cross my mind, the layoff, to be honest with you.
You said to me texted me after his work that it was reminiscent of the work that Blame put in with Garrett Gomez prior to his win in the Classic. You've got the picture over your shoulder of that epic performance. I remember being on the racetrack, and when Blame was able to beat Zenyatta, obviously it wasn't a popular decision amongst the fans because Zenyatta had such a following, but Blame was such an amazing horse and in such an amazing accomplishment for you. This is so different, the situation surrounding Tiz the Law in the Classic this year. I'm wondering if that perspective of having one with Blame makes this experience even more rewarding potentially.
Well, they're different type of horses. One thing they do have in common, though, is just pure class. Very nice to be around, and they just stand out compared to regular horses. That's the way Blame was. That's the way Tom is. Now you can talk about an age difference, and we're going to a race here where there's obviously not going to be a 2 to 5 shot or a 3 to 5 shot. So it's not going to be that heavy drama. It's just going to be a good old-fashioned horse race, and whoever has the best trip and the best horse on the day most probably will win. So it's a little bit different, but it is similar in certain ways also.
Do you allow yourself to envision the same kind of outcome?
Well, we've come this far, and the closer I get to a race, the less I have to do, and I like it that way. The last work is done. He's already been vet checked from A to Z, from the Breeders' Cup vets and all that kind of stuff. And, the riders in the morning, Joel Rosario, I just kind of throw the tack on him. I have a lot of confidence in the horse doing his thing. Hopefully, if things work out for all of us, and it would be just a thrill for the horse, the owners, me and my family, if we could get lucky enough to happen to win 2 of these things.
Quite an experience for those of us watching him that have watched Tiz the Law along the way as well. We wish you the best of luck, Al.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And the owner of Tiz the Law, GMB Racing, that's Gail Benson, who is the owner of the New Orleans Saints. They had a thrilling overtime win last night over the Chicago Bears. She also owns the NBA's New Orleans Pelicans, and her late husband, Tom Benson, at Tiz the Law. In reference to him, she loves racing. She's got a chance to win the biggest race they've ever had a chance to win, as Tiz the Law is one of the favorites in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Simon, at the advanced age of 7, when you look at Tiz the Law, his career, this has really been a magnificent training job by Al Stall Jr. to get him to this race in peak form for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. There have been a lot of setbacks along the way with this horse.
Yeah, well documented ones. He alluded to them, but we don't usually see 7-year-old entire horses, right, running in the Breeders' Cup Classic. No 7-year-old has won the Breeders' Cup Classic. They're usually parked off the stud. They're much too valuable to. But as time has gone on, Tiz the Law has built his resume, built his past performance lines, and is making himself into a top-class handicap horse. I wouldn't trade places if I was Al Stall here. I think he's coming into the race in great shape. I think the key point here, and I mentioned it earlier on the week, obviously, coming from Al, it means a lot more, but I think he runs so well fresh, especially an older horse at this point. And as the horses get older, Todd, from a trainer's standpoint, I think you learn to adjust, and you become so familiar with them that you know them inside out. And it becomes actually a little easier to train a horse at this age than maybe a younger horse.
Al Stall Jr. brimming with confidence with Tiz the Law coming into the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Global Campaign, Stanley Huff has liked how this horse is coming in, and Global Campaign out on the track this morning here at Churchill Downs. He took the field gate to wire in the Grade 1 Woodward last time out, beating Tacitus, who will be in this race as well. Global Campaign prior to that took the Monmouth Cup. It's all about peaking at the right time. Global Campaign seems to have put it together at the right time, Simon.
He certainly does. I had high hopes for him after his first and second start. I thought he emulated his sire a little bit, that he started his career early on in his 3-year-old year down at Gulfstream Park, breaking his maiden in impressive fashion. And I thought he might be a factor in the Triple Crown races that year, just like Curl and his sire. But that didn't pan out, went to the wayside. And if you really go through his past performance lines, his excuses can be talked away. I think the 1-turn mile at Churchill was too short for him. And then in the Jim Dandy, he went to the sidelines after that for nearly 9-10 months. So there are excuses in there, and you take those races out, and he's got a pretty good-looking resume, a horse that likes to lay close to the pace. He's going to have some tactical speed here. And, again, he's improving at the right time.
Well, we get to see the different habits of all these horses, and that was quite a shot there we got of Global Campaign as he bolted away from the pony horse there and goes off onto the track at Churchill Downs. But it is here on the track at Keeneland where he is going to be a big factor and most likely one of the horses on the lead, and hoping to set a soft pace for him in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Back here at Keeneland on the backside, Joaquin Jaime.
So why do you need an exercise rider versus just having her walk around here with the saddle on and doing it without the exercise rider?
Well, also as a trainer, you know, you always have sleepless nights leading up to all these big races. You have the rider that's been with her, that's used to her. He gets on her, he can feel anything different. You know, he's been on her. Giovanni Navarro, the rider of Come Dancing this year, the whole year. So, you know, you always look for anything that might be abnormal and stuff. And when you put weight on their back, you can get some signs that you might not get to see without the weight on her back. And especially somebody who knows her, even with a few turns, he might be able to tell you something or anything that he feels different. So it's always just a good tool to have their riders on their back.
How's she coming into the Breeders' Cup this year versus at Santa Anita?
Well, we did a few different things. We brought her in a little bit earlier. You know, she's fresh. She hasn't run since the Honorable Miss. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, she'll give us a great last, her last dance will be hopefully her best one on the biggest stage is what we're hoping to accomplish with her.
All right, we'll let you go ahead and catch up with her. Carlos Martin, guys, we're just making left-handed turns here in the shed row, tack walking with Come Dancing.
One of your key contenders in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. That's the very latest of Come Dancing's preparations. And we heard that earlier from Gabby that a lot of these horses are going to be walking today around the shed row. But I am noticing some horses getting out on to the track right now. And let's get more from Scott Hazelton.
With Pete Mirabito of Our Mims. And Pete, what is the mission of Our Mims Retirement Haven?
Hi. The mission is to provide a forever home for mares that have done a lot of work in their life, and then it's time for them just to have a place just to be horses. And so my wife established this facility when she initially found Our Mims and helped her get rescued, and then Mims's time with us was really a beautiful time for my wife. She wasn't really doing anything official, just taking care of a horse that she loved. When Mims passed, my wife was kind of devastated by that and was sort of ready to stop, sort of getting hurt by losing things she loved. And Barbara Livingston actually helped rescue Sugar and Spice, which was Our Mims's half-sister. And so Sugar came to live with us, and when Jeannie took care of Sugar and helped her have a really nice ending, then she got the strength to go ahead and start a formal business. And so she started taking care of thoroughbred mares then. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and it's a small facility. It's a family-run place. You know, we have an employee, Ann Cheek, who's tremendous at taking care of the ladies that are there now. But it's a small facility, 10 horses. They get cared for in the kind of way that you would expect a thoroughbred to be cared for. They're up at night in the winter, and they're up in the day in the summer, and they get feed and vet care and farrier. So it's a really nice place for these horses to end up after they've done their job all of their lives. And the thing that's, I think, extra special about what my wife did with this facility was she also established a place for people to come that love horses. And so it's as much as the horses get a chance to heal and rest at the end of their life, people come. And so we have volunteers and visitors. Some of the visitors are real horse people that know what they're looking at. Others are just people that kind of want to be around a horse and they never have. Both of those people have an opportunity to be with the horses at Our Mims in the way that they want. And I think that the people that come to visit get a lot of peace as well.
Pete, lastly, how much has the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, the TAA, helped you in achieving your goal over at Our Mims?
Yeah, so the TAA has been invaluable support. They've been with us for a number of years now. You know, the facility is, the horses that come generally don't come with a lot of money from the people who place them with us, and so we depend upon people, the agency like TAA, to provide support. There are multiple foundations that also have, Jeannie has captured their hearts and they've helped. And then there's hundreds of people all around the world that send money all the time to help take care of these animals. And so we're very appreciative of TAA and all the other support that makes it possible to do what we do.
Well, Pete, we're appreciative of your work, and keep up the good work over at RMIMS.
Yeah, thanks very much. Come on out. It's Paris, Kentucky. It's the capital of the horse world, I guess second to Lexington. Please come on out.
We are nothing without the horse. It starts there and it branches out. And we have a great obligation as an industry to make sure our amazing equine athletes are taken care of after their careers are done. Our MIMS is one of 74 organizations accredited by the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. As the official aftercare partner of the Breeders' Cup, the TAA is asking connections of contenders in this year's Breeders' Cup to support Thoroughbred Aftercare by pledging a percentage of their potential earnings at the Breeders' Cup World Thoroughbred Championships. To take the pledge to support our equine athletes and new careers, visit thoroughbredaftercare.org/pledge. And for those of you excited for the Breeders' Cup, best way to commemorate it is by going to the Breeders' Cup shop. There is something on every scale there, including personal protection equipment. Breeders' Cup masks are there, the traditional hats, some great hoodies and pullovers as well. And then also check out John Morris. He has a hand-painted collection that is stunning, and it is a perfect way to commemorate a Breeders' Cup where, yes, we did not have fans, but we'll have some of the most amazing races this year, including a Longines Breeders' Cup Classic that has one of the deepest fields in recent memory. Gabby Gaudet with more here at Keeneland.
Todd, yeah, so it's been a little bit of a change up here this morning with regard to training hours. We mentioned that the track was closed earlier today. It normally does open at 6 o'clock a.m., and then the first break is at 7:30 to 8 a.m., and then training resumes at 8 o'clock. But today, because the track was so delayed in opening, the track is actually now open, 7:30, and they will take a break at 8 o'clock a.m. and then have a 15-minute break, so horses can come back to the track just 15 minutes after that 8:30 closing time, so they can harrow the track, and then they can continue, or horsemen can continue training. I mentioned that there are a lot of horsemen that have made the decision to go to the training track, to tack walk, to walk today, but there are a lot of horsemen that still have decided to take their horses out to the main track. In fact, one of them is trainer Kenny McPeak. Swiss Skydiver is heading out to the track right now, about to train. She's going to jog one lap under Robbie Alvarado and then gallop a mile and a half. So look for her to hit the track in just a couple of minutes. And I even spoke to Phil Gleaves with regard to his horse, 2nd of July. And this just was by happenstance. Todd, I was back in the barns and I talked to him. I said, what did you do with your horse this morning? He said, we took him out to the training track. And in fact, he relaxed so nicely and the surface is so good out there that he said that he's going to train him on the training track every day up until Friday. So sometimes, Todd, you know, it can be a little bit of a blessing in disguise. It certainly has worked for 2nd of July, but I expect it to get pretty busy here in the next coming minutes on the main track.
Gabby, of all these horses that we have out here today, I think the question in everyone's mind, are we seeing Duke later? What's going on there?
Yes, I'm not chickening out, I promise.
Okay.
It's cold. It's not too cold. I'm about to go get him tacked up, and I'll be out there in a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you, Gabby, for the very latest here on the backside at Keeneland. Training going to resume, and as you heard, the exciting news, Swiss Skydiver going to be out at Churchill Downs. So some big names coming out of the track, and most interesting will be the Europeans that will be out here, and Swiss Skydiver coming out to the main track at Keeneland. Remember, she was here for Toyota Bluegrass Stakes, in which she finished 2nd to the boys, and there she is now. Simon, when we saw her at Churchill Downs in that workout, she didn't look like, you know, we talk about this taxing campaign, will it catch up to her? Didn't look like it in that workout, and now we get to see her here at Keeneland. How's she look to you?
She looks great. She looks alert. She's carrying good flesh, and I think that's the key with her. And, you know, these horses that give you telltale signs. Look, I've said this before, being a trainer, one of the things you've got to do is first have a photographic memory or have good people working for you. And secondly, be there every day. These animals can't talk to you, so you have to notice the difference in their routine from day to day. If something pops up that they don't normally do, it's probably a red flag. It's similar to what I said at the start of this work show. All these horses work good, but you're looking for something that isn't quite right. That's something that you don't see normally. And when you're training horses, you know, these horses are in your care for 2 or 3 years, so you get to know them, you know, in a pretty detailed manner. So the minute they don't do something that they would normally do, it's probably time to start looking, or something, if nothing shows up, there's usually a reason they'll do something a little different, and it will show up maybe 2, 3, 4 days down the road. And in her case, I think the feed tub is a telltale sign. That's always the first thing you look at with horses. How are they eating? They're, you know, every morning they're fed 3 times a day. The night watchman would probably feed them in the middle of the night, and every single time, you know, when I was training, I'd have the night watchman leave a note when I came in the morning, how much was left, which horse left what food, etc. But I mean, look at her. This is a filly that's had probably one of the hardest campaigns of any of the 201 entered horses on the 2 Breeders' Cup World Championship days. And look at her. You wouldn't know any different.
Tampa Bay, Fairgrounds, Gulfstream Park, Oaklawn Park, Santa Anita, Keeneland, Saratoga, Churchill Downs, Pimlico, and now back here to Keeneland. That is the campaign that Swiss Skydiver has had on the travel front, but when you look at the races themselves, it's remarkable. Twice taking on the boys. We mentioned the Grade 2 Toyota Bluegrass Stakes here, and we showed you the exciting stretch run in the Grade 1 Preakness where she held off Kentucky Derby winner Authentic. They had separated themselves from the rest of the field by nearly 10 lengths. And Swiss Skydiver, it was announced on this show earlier this week, Ken McPeak telling Caden Bradar, we're going to the Distaff unless there is some major breaking news for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. That has not developed. In fact, the post position draw is later today for the Breeders' Cup. Simon, your ultimate thoughts on the decision to go to the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff versus the Classic for Swiss Skydiver?
I think they made the right move. Look, I mean, I think when you look at it, you know, when I'm training, I'm always looking at the easiest spot, right? Or the spot where you have the best chance. That's your job as a trainer, to put the horse where they think they have the best chance. And I think the morning line hasn't come out, the entries haven't come out, but she's got a lot better chance, at least as far as odds go, in the Distaff than she does against the boys in the Classic. So I think going in, this is exactly the right move. Now, depending what happens on the results next weekend, there'll be a lot of naysayers. Oh, she should have run in the Classic. She should have run in the Classic. But I think they made the right move here.
She's got an Eclipse Award wrapped up as far as 3-year-old filly, no matter what happens in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. Is there a scenario if there was some type of crazy upset in the Breeders' Cup Classic and she takes care of her business in the Distaff over a fantastic filly and Monomoy Girl, could we be looking at a Horse of the Year candidate, even though she didn't go to the Classic and take on the boys? Again, provided that there was some kind of crazy upset in the Classic.
Right, you'd have to have kind of craziness in the Classic. I think she would be in the conversation, right? She would at least be a nominee for that category for sure if she could win, and especially if she won the Distaff in impressive fashion as well.
It is quite a double she is attempting to pull off, taking the Grade 1 Preakness and then now the Distaff. Appreciate Swiss Skydiver and what she is doing in 2020, and we appreciate watching her right here at Keeneland out on the track right now. Let's check in with Rombauer, who is going to be part of Future Stars Friday. Simon?
Yeah, for trainer Michael McCarthy, and coming off a good second-place finish in the American Pharoah. This is the first time we get to see some of the California horses that arrived on the first plane from California yesterday, the Tex Sutton flight. And, you know, you're always anxious to see how these horses come off the plane. I mean, the key with them, and Baffert mentioned it in an interview earlier this week with Christina, you know, horses are very susceptible to get sick when they travel. They're in a confined space for quite a period of time, and young horses tend to get sometimes sick once in a while. They get a fever. As they develop and get older and the immune systems get stronger, they can overcome it. So you're always looking, you're always cautious as a trainer that first morning, taking temperatures before they come out. But look at Rombauer here. This is exactly what you want after a day of travel, is a nice easy gallop around the racetrack here. And like I said, I think these horses from the West Coast are going to appreciate these cooler temperatures here. But this is a professional little 2-year-old. He's not too aggressive and just listening to the commands of the rider.
Rumbauer out on the track here this morning at Keeneland, preparing for the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile, presented by the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. Rumbauer, son of Twirling Candy out of the Cowboy Cal mare Cashmere, was bred here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky by John and Diane Fradkin. They are also the owners of Rumbauer. Much more to come here on TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm in Keeneland. We'll be back right after this.
It's not how we fly, but how we fall that separates the pioneer spirit from the rest. This is what's remembered, what remains, when all else has been stripped away.
As a 2-year-old, he was just phenomenal. I think that 2-year-old form is so important, especially when they can take it to that championship level. And Game Winner, he brought it to that championship level. The Rebel Stakes, he still ran the most impressive race, just getting beat in the nose by Omaha Beach. Candy Ride was a brilliant racehorse. He showed brilliance, and he throws brilliance. And Game Winner, you know, the minute he showed that brilliance, I knew right there we had something really special.
Hey, neighbor, we gotta talk.
Well, Jay? No, he only comes to Bugle on race days.
Race days?
With the TVG app, every day is race day. You can place bets right in your phone, even stream live races.
Upcoming race at the Breeders' Cup.
I can have a day at the track whenever I want, right at home.
Coming through, guys.
Go get him, Mike.
Mike Smith?
Yeah, Mike Smith.
There's a new home of horse racing, yours. Get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to $250.
At Calumet Farm, we're proud to offer proven stallions to fit every breeder's needs. With over 72 million in progeny winnings on dirt and turf, our diverse roster is producing the champions of today and tomorrow. Calumet Farm, a legacy reborn.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, the best-selling big fan in the world. Big-ass fans, exceptionally engineered.
Anybody goes, 50, 75, 850, 75, 175. Sprout, 850,000. Thank you.
Volatile just like that. In front by 3, now by 4. And the time, 107.57.
As they pass the 16th hole, Volatile, victorious in the Vanderbilt. 1 by 2 lengths.
Sprout, 850,000. Thank you.
It's not how we fly, but how we fall that separates the pioneer spirit from the rest. This is what's remembered, what remains, when all else has been stripped away.
And Spikestown down at the rail. Those three heading into the final furlong together. Spikestown comes away with the lead. Spikestown in front. Goldstorm battling on, but he is now spent. My cousin Matt, a long shot threat coming late. Duana Charlie on the far outside. Keela's coming late too, but it's going to be Spikestown. Spikestown wins by 2 on the wire. Keela comes from way out of it to be second. Long shot, my cousin Matt was third.
Here at WinStar Farm with Spikestown, one of the top stallions here in central Kentucky and one of the fastest horses of his generation, winner of the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Lone Star Park. And what an impact he has made off the racetrack in the breeding shed. The sire of a top Grade 1 winner this year in Echo Town, Mozu Superflare, a top runner in Japan. He just continues to get it done each and every year. Spikestown, one of the tops here at WinStar Farm.
And yesterday, we got to see his brilliantly fast son, Nashville, with a decision still to be made. Spikestown, sire of Nashville, who may go in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, maybe opt for a race on the undercard, look for something else, but look for Nashville and look for all the progeny of Speightstown. Out at Keeneland, or out at Churchill Downs, we had a chance to see Global Campaign take off aggressively when he first got on the racetrack. Catching up with his trainer with Global Campaign is Caden Bradar.
And Stan Huff was just remarking that Global Campaign will do that little buck jump takeoff thing. A good feeling horse, and that must give you some confidence going into the Breeders' Cup Classic, Stan.
I think he's feeling good. He really is acting good, you know. But those kind of antics is what caused him a lot of problems as a late 2-year-old, early 3-year-old.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those problems, because I know that you really feel that this is a horse who has some legitimate excuses for the time that it's taken to get him to this point.
Yes, most of it was because that. At one time, before he ran as a 3-year-old, just doing one of those things, just bucking and playing, either pulling up or starting off, he grabbed a quarter, but which like a lot of them do, and we got that cleaned up with no problem. But it was shortly thereafter that he broke his maiden, was fine. Second start, he was fine. And then in the Fountain of Youth, whether he stumbled playing with the pony or so, I don't know where he did it, but he almost took his whole quarter off. When you see, he's got a scar there that up on, below the foot there, where he really went into the actual meat there and really laid that open. So that was a process getting that back. And then through where she was, and then after that came quarter cracks and things, and whatever a foot can do, he's kind of went through it. But he's good right now. I did put a pad on him just to get through work, and again because of a frog situation, but he's been in those pads, the spider pads, half of his career. So that's going to come off morning of the race, and he'll go in a 3/4 shoe like he always does.
So is it a matter of timing for him that maybe perhaps the talent that you saw can materialize in the biggest stage with those problems behind him, that maybe he's ready to be able to take that type of a step and put it all together?
I sure hope so, because he came back, I think, a better all-around physical horse. And we were really happy with his first race back, even though it was just it was an allowance race, but it was a good competitive race that they ran fast, going 7/8. And then he threw a clunker in here. I think I may be running back a little too soon, because he was coming off like 7 or 8 months between the races there, I think the Jim Dandy to the race in Florida. And so he did run a good number, and one of his best numbers that race, and ran a really good race. But so I ran him back in 30 days here and shipped in between. And once again, he acted good. I felt that, I felt that bounce there. He wasn't going to come into play. But he got bumped around. He just didn't show up that race. And so it was about 60 days until the race at Monmouth. And he trained very good. And when he went into that race, you still had the other one in mind, but he kind of there was a pace duel, and then another horse came to him, and he kind of took the lead on him. And he really never had any, he rode him hard, and he was able to leave that horse. I thought it was a great indication that he was, going to really do well. So then he had another bit of time until the Woodward, and that race, it was short field, but he was able to kind of control that race. So this one he's not going to be able to control, but we'll see that hopefully he can get a good position, and I think he can get into that stride, and I think he'll run okay.
Stan, I know I'm going to let you go and get back to your horses, and with the action continuing elsewhere, but guys, he's not one to talk hyperbole. So I do know that Stan Huff is feeling pretty positive about the direction that Global Campaign is heading in. The horse is feeling very good, and I think he's a little under the radar, but definitely one that you want to keep your eye on.
Yeah, to show you the depth of that Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, here you have the Grade 1 Woodward winner, and a pretty easy winner at that. Global Campaign, you'll most likely get at 10-1 or higher in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. It's the two best betting days as well at the Breeders' Cup, and it will be highlighted by the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday. 9 championship races on Saturday, including the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, Swiss Skydiver, and her big showdown with Monomoy girl there. She continues her preparations out on the main track here at Keeneland. We'll be back with more TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm and Keeneland.
Here's the wire, and Rushing Full has done it. As they come to the line, Roy H. does it again. As they come to the final 16, Mooney to the front. Got Stormy back in the second. Without Parole takes third lead. Behind Mooney in the miles.
Back out here at Keeneland, the pressure is building. Final preparations in place for all the connections who will be racing in 14 championship races Friday and Saturday here at Keeneland Racecourse. Amongst them, Tiz the Law, who has been the leader of the 3-year-old division all year long, and then Authentic beat him in the Kentucky Derby. But Simon, we have seen Tiz the Law a lot here at Keeneland. He came in very, very early, and he's thriving.
He certainly is, and these are important. These are just as important days to monitor these horses on the track than when we saw the workout. Remember, he worked 48 hours ago. He had one day in the barn yesterday, and he's going to be aggressive this morning because he was walked yesterday and probably grazed in the afternoon. And you can see Heather Smullen there is just, I mean, she's prepared for it. She's ridden this horse before, and she probably knows how he's going to be. Luckily, the track's nice and quiet, but she wouldn't want to move too much more because I think if she dropped her hands or just made a quick movement, he'd take a hold of the bit and be gone. So you see this a lot with horses once they've had that day off. This will maybe take the edge off him, and he might be a little more manageable tomorrow. But this is a good sign that he's thriving and doing well.
Tiz the Law preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, the 14th and final championship race of the 2 days, and the highlight obviously to the Saturday card. And another example, you can get a horse like Tiz the Law with his credentials at a very good price in there, because all those Bob Baffert entrants are going to take a lot of the play. Improbable, the expected favorite there. And Tiz the Law, as we talked about in the Kentucky Derby, maybe laid a little bit too much off the pace, and it cost him in there. But he looks like he'll be very aggressive into the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic and enjoying getting out on the track here. Is this a little too fast for your liking at all, Simon?
I don't think so. I mean, it's pretty quick, but I think that's okay. I mean, you wouldn't want to go too far like this. So I think Heather Smullen's doing a great job here. I mean, there's a fine line to where you want to let the horse, make forward progressive motion rather than just fight him to go too slow. When you start fighting a horse and try and go a little slower, that's when problems occur. That's when their heads start thrashing around. They've got the real possibility, a very strong possibility of grabbing a quarter, about the segment we just saw with Stanley Huff, because, they're not balanced. Their legs, are clipping with each other, and there's a chance of that. So sometimes it's better just to let him run a little bit, 1/8 of a mile. You see, he's come back to her a little bit here. So I think she's done a tremendous job, aided by the very quiet racetrack. That helps a lot here, rather than having a lot of traffic around him.
So insightful to watch. When we look at jockeys in the afternoon, we give them so much credit for what they do, and rightly so. This is a perfect example of the exercise riders in the morning and how they are equally as talented, and their role is as much important as what's done in the afternoon. And that is on display here as Tiz the Law and Heather Smullen go around the racetrack. Let's turn our attention to Future Stars Friday, and out on the track, one of many juveniles preparing for the big races on Friday. Preparing for the Juvenile Turf for trainer Brad Cox is Abarta.
Yeah, lightly raced, has been very impressive in both starts. Rallied from way downtown in the Bourbon last time behind Mutasa Beck for trainer Todd Pletcher. 17-1 that day in the Bourbon. Let's take a look at Abarta on the main track here again. A turf horse training on the dirt, has done so by Into Mischief. So, I mean, we should see that, you would hope that this horse could handle the dirt as well. But beautiful shot there. And again, a horse who's very, very professional. I've been very impressed with all these 2-year-olds this week. That's why they're here, because we've always talked about their mental capacity. They've got to have that on these big days. And to be a good racehorse, you've got to have it. And this is a horse that is doing very, very well at the moment.
Abarta pointing towards the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf presented by Coolmore America out on the track this morning here at Keeneland. Higher Power preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. His big win was the TVG Pacific Classic, but that's getting to be a long time ago, going back to last year. Higher Power came in a lot earlier than some of the other Californians who will just be arriving. Look, Simon, his best probably you wouldn't think is good enough. Is he a horse that, with what you're seeing here in the mornings, you could advise someone playing this race that he could maybe hit the board?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's a horse to use underneath probably, but I think it's, deeper waters here for him. I mean, look, he's a great racehorse, and John Sadler's done a tremendous job since getting him. I mean, he won the TVG Pacific Classic, and that's ultimately, a goal in itself, especially for the connections, if you know him. So John Sadler, Southern California based, Costa Aronis, and his family operation, they're based in Southern California. That's like their Kentucky Derby, their West Coast Breeders' Cup Classic, if you will, the TVG Pacific Classic. But yeah, I mean, he's been beaten by Improbable and Maximum Security twice. So he's got to turn the tables on them, and I don't see any reason why he should, unless one of those two has an off day.
Higher Power out on the track, preparing for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is where we go next, and we're actually going to take you aboard the next horse you're about to see, as we do have a jockey camera available to you. This has been a fun part of the week, getting these exercise riders' perspectives on the horses that are out here and taking a look at Magic Sands coming out on the track, preparing for Midnight Sands, preparing for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
Yeah, it's a good view here, just standing out. And you can see there, a lot of these horses do that when they come out on the track. Global Campaign was one of the few that we didn't see do that, and he came out with a pony and just busted off. But more often than not, we like to stand these horses out so they're relaxed. So it takes away from that situation of them potentially grabbing a quarter or injuring themselves, and it gets them to relax. You don't want them, the minute they step on the racetrack, to be anxious, nervous. So they'll sit out here and just watch the action for a little bit. I like that.
Midnight Sands, son of Speightstown, and a horse who found his best success at Maidan in Dubai, taking the Range Rover Velar. Midnight Sands preparing for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and taking you aboard with his jockey as he waits to come out on the racetrack. We had a chance to see Harvey's Little Goyle working over at Churchill Downs with Casa Creed, and this is at Keeneland this morning now. Harvey's Little Goyle out on the racetrack, and Simon looked good, you know, obviously preparing for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and also that opportunity where she had won the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup here at Keeneland, so she knows the turf course. How does she look? And our first appearance here since her work, we saw her at Churchill.
She looks great. She's a model of consistency, right? She's only run one bad race, and that was in the Fantasy on the dirt. So I don't think they'll be going back there anytime soon, even though she won, you know, 2 of her first 3 starts by 13 lengths on the main track. She's found a home here on the turf, being by American Pharoah, no surprise. And you're going to see, as we mentioned yesterday, Bill Mott does this with all his horses. They'll have a warm-up, and then they'll stand out a little bit, let the rider maybe adjust some tack, make some last-minute adjustments, and then they go ahead and do their work. It's similar to a human athlete, right? When you warm up, you don't do a warm-up and then go straight into your hard exercise. You do a warm-up, stretch, maybe relax a little bit, and then go ahead and do your exercise. But I'm thinking this horse will just maybe jog back a little bit and then go ahead and work.
Harvey's Little Goyle out on the track and well into her exercise this morning. And now taking a look at Midnight Sands out on the racetrack and beginning this work. Simon, how does that process work with getting an exercise rider for the mornings? Are there exercise riders that go barn to barn, or do trainers retain exercise riders they have great confidence in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the big barns will retain their core group of exercise riders. You're exactly right. They'll make sure they have them. I mean, look, you cannot do this job. It's very labor intensive. And while, you know, trainers and connections get a lot of credit, there needs to be a lot of credit with people behind the scenes, ranging from the hard walkers, the grooms, and ultimately the exercise rider. Look, jockeys do a great job, but it's all in vain if none of it is executed properly in the morning. You know, a jockey's going to be on the horse for maybe anywhere from, you know, 59 seconds to maybe a minute and a half at most. These riders, you know, spend every single day, and they are very, very key in the preparation of bringing a horse up to a race. I mean, if they, you know, make one wrong mistake, it's all over. So, yeah, the big barns usually retain riders, and they're a key and important part of the operation. Smaller operation might retain one rider, and then you have some freelance riders in the morning that go around and get on certain horses and just go from barn to barn to barn. But the big operations will retain a core, essential, key group of exercise riders.
Midnight Sands continuing around the racetrack here. Going to be a huge long shot for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, trained by Brendan Walsh, owned by the Cool Silk Partnership, bred by Flaxman Holdings here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky by Speightstown out of the Schammerdal mare. It's Midnight. A lot of excitement around the Europeans arriving here. Siskin is here for the mile. Simon, what can you tell us about Siskin?
Siskin's a very, very good horse here. I just want to take a look here as this horse is warming up here. I like to look at these Europeans when they first come on the track because they're not used to training in an environment like this. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that they're not used to, you know, jogging backwards, having horses coming at them. So I'm impressed with Siskin, who looks very, very good on the track here, warming up. So I think that crossed a lot of the boxes there. But this is a horse who's run well against some of the top class horses in Europe. Ran in the Sussex Stakes off the top of my head. I think it was third to Mohathir, who at the time was an improving horse. And the first 4 or 5 starts of Siskin's career was very, very strong. Classic winner, won the Irish 2000 Guineas earlier this year. But the form has just started to tail off a little bit. Was 4th in the Prix de Moulin last time out. And that's another thing with these European horses. Sometimes you're always worried when the form tends to tail off to the end of the year. The true flat season runs from April to sort of deep September, October. And sometimes the form can tail off They have a condensed season. They run a lot more, and they're geared up to those major midsummer races. And sometimes they can tail off when the weather changes. But I like what I saw there jogging on the track. But a Classic winner, I mean, just that in of itself brings a lot of credentials to the party.
Yeah, Siskin definitely has a performance to run to with a 3-year-old taking on older horses in the mile. What about this idea, though, of these horses clearing quarantine? What are you trying to do immediately out of quarantine when they finally can get out to the track?
Yeah, you're not going to do too much with them because they've had the long flight, and usually it's not direct. Maybe in the case of some of the big operations like Godolphin and Coolmore, they have their own airplane, but a lot of the times you maybe have to make a stop or two. So there's the travel one, and then there's the 42 hours of quarantine where they're not allowed outside the barn, so they can just hand walk in the barn. So the first day out of quarantine, usually you're not doing much more than a little jog or trot like that.
Let's come back to some 2-year-olds for Future Stars Friday. Day out of the office looked great when we had a chance to see this one just a couple of days ago, and is now out on the racetrack. Day out of the office, getting ready for those big 2-year-old races on Future Stars Friday, and Day out of the office will be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
Yeah, this was a filly. Boy, was she impressive, not only in her races, but in her workout the other day. That was just an outstanding workout. Tim Ham was very happy with it. And again, I'm happy to see this. Pay close attention to these horses' first day back on the track. It's been a couple of days, 48 hours, probably had a day off. And I think just pulling up from the exercise here and moving very, very well. Always like to see them jog there with weight on their back. We heard that with Come Dancing earlier this morning. You put a little weight on their back, and if there's any, something's a little off or something not quite right, it'll present itself, and there's nothing wrong here. It looks fantastic.
Day out of the office, clearly the best 2-year-old filly in the East for trainer Timothy Ham, as Simon mentioned, and the best out of the West, Princess Noor, coming in for trainer Bob Baffert. Going to be a phenomenal showdown in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Gabby Gaudet with the trainer of Midnight Sands, Brendan Walsh.
Okay, Todd, I'm going to try to catch up here, but his pony's pretty good, and he told me that Midnight Sands is also pretty good as well. And Brendan is actually aboard Scuba. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this Blues Cup Buffet? Okay, we had a little thing at the Gap the other day. Okay, Brendan, so when is Midnight Sands going to come out?
He's in the next set after that. I guess they're going to have a little maintenance break, and then we're going to bring him up.
And who are you on? What's kind of his story? I know this is Scuba, but he in fact participated in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it was still, I don't think it was still a Breeders' Cup race, but he won the marathon out in Santa Anita 4 years ago, Gabby.
Oh, very cool.
He won the Hawthorne Gold Cup, he won the Greenwood Cup at Parks. He was a good horse, so he's taken to his pony job here, and he's doing pretty good.
How have you had to adjust your morning this morning with the delay in opening the track since it was frozen?
We weren't too bad because the two in the dirt sprint, they train a lot on the poly track anyway. So we brought them down and trained them on the poly first. And then we brought this guy up here, and we're going to wait until after the break with Midnight Sands. So it wasn't too bad for us.
And I saw you go out with Extravagant Kid earlier. How did he go?
He's great, yeah. He came out of his work really good, and we couldn't be happier with him, really. He looks $1 million, and he's doing great, so hopefully we get a good draw.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, actually, we might lose you here, Brendan, but quickly about Paul. Obviously, we had the jockey cam on him. How long has Paul actually worked for you?
I think maybe 20 years now, is it? That's what it seems like. Four going on 20.
Four going on 20,
years.
He says.
4 years. Yeah. To him, it probably feels like 20. But no, Paul's been with me for 4 years.
Is he going to have the jockey cam on for Midnight Sands?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna chat with Paul a little bit later, but thank you, Brendan, and we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, guys.
All right, back to you, Todd.
Gabby, you're amazing, and so is Duke, getting right up on the action, also clarifying things that, again, we're a long ways away when we're trying to identify these horses with our cameras, and we got a full crew scrambling through to see who is who. So nothing like being on the ground and finding out who's who for sure. Well, there is a face and a voice I could recognize from thousands of miles away, and I miss her terribly. Christina Blacker is out at Santa Anita, and it's starting to get a little bit more quiet there because the Breeders' Cup horses are headed this way.
That's right, Todd. Much quieter here at Santa Anita. It's been pretty quiet all week, to be honest, because Del Mar opening this week, there would be a lot of horses and horsemen that are down at Del Mar to compete. So it's been quiet here for the last few days, but really all of our main work is done. Yesterday you saw the work from Improbable, the last few works from Collusion Illusion and Sharp Samurai for Mark Glatt. Those were the last horses that we were kind of following here as far as their final preparations. I told you about the plane that left yesterday with Mike McCarthy and many of his horses and others. Mike McCarthy himself actually flew with the horses, which I'll tell you what, in this day and age, probably a smart move, not very many people on that plane, just the grooms of the other Breeders' Cup competitors. So he has a touchdown with those runners yesterday, kind of D. Wayne Lucas style. Wayne Lucas used to always fly with his horses as well. There is one more flight leaving here, and that is tomorrow. And so that will, of course, carry Bob Baffert's horses, Mark Glatt, who we saw working yesterday. And that will be the last of the California contingent to make their way back east. We do have some riders that are still here that are riding the last day of the weekend at Del Mar today. Umberto Rispoli would be amongst them. Those riders will get on a plane in the next couple of days, make their way to Lexington, of course, go through all of the COVID screening protocols and whatnot before they get on a plane and arrive there. So we're going to kind of wander around here this morning on the front side. I do believe John Sadler is still on the grounds. Bob Baffert has left today himself as well. So we'll see if we can't hustle up any interviews, any last minute comments, or maybe questions with regard to the draw from some of the trainers that might still be here keeping an eye on their mainstream. But for the most part, Todd, everybody's packed up, wheels up. We are headed to Lexington. I am looking forward to it. And I'm feeling like a baby because it's 30 degrees warmer here and I'm wearing my TVG gloves. So I'll bring a much bigger jacket, a hat, and everything else I need to stay warm there with you guys.
Yeah, pack for all the seasons when you come out here, Christina. Can't wait till you get here. Safe travels. Christina with the latest from California, and she'll be part of our team coverage here on site at Keeneland Racecourse leading up to the Breeders' Cup. Out on the track right now is Gretzky the Great, a horse when we last saw him, Simon, took the Grade 1 summer up at Woodbine. He comes in on a 3-race win streak, and Gretzky the Great is scheduled to go on Future Stars Friday in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf presented by Coolmore America.
Another horse that's really relished the development through the summer months and the mile trip as well. Last time, that's a tough, stiff mile up in Canada, that one-turn mile for 2-year-olds. So that was a very impressive win last time out for trainer Mark Cassey and Eclipse Thoroughbreds Gary Barber. Let's take a look at Gretzky the Great here by Nyquist out of a Bernardini mare. So by a Derby winner out of a mare who's by a Preakness winner. So there's lots of stamina top and bottom, lots of Triple Crown pedigree, but he's found a home here on the grass as he jogs back for his morning exercise.
Bred by Anderson Farms up in Ontario, Canada. Had a chance to see David Anderson. He's actually in town for the entire month, although he's always in motion. He was going up to the Breeders' Crown in Indiana. He's got some interest in standard bred racing. He also has some Andalusians he was visiting in Iowa. But the breeder of Gretzky, the great David Anderson, a good friend of TVG. He also has equipment for equestrian riders out there. And David Anderson involved at all levels, and he's very proud of this horse that he has bred. Gretzky the Great, the son of Nyquist, as you mentioned, Simon, out on the track here. And when you look at the summer, I think sometimes when we talk about these quote-unquote one-turn races, can a horse get the 2 turns they'll face here at Keeneland? With the summer, yeah, it's a one-turn mile at Woodbine, but that is a demanding one-turn mile.
Yeah, it's a very stiff mile, and I think it rides, like a mile and a 16th, maybe a mile and an 8th. So if you're getting a mile up there, the chances are as a 2-year-old, you're going to get a mile here at Keeneland with the slightly tighter turns here, 2-turn configuration. So that's not going to be an issue. The issue is just getting a trip and a decent post position.
Gretzky the Great now standing and taking a look at his surroundings as he gets ready for Future Stars Friday and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf presented by Coolmore America. Gretzky the Great certainly adapting to these conditions, almost Canadian-like weather here today, especially for this time of year with the cooler temperatures. So we do have, obviously, the activity here on the main track, but as mentioned earlier, we're also down on the training track. That's where we find these Europeans. Seal Away amongst them. And here is a look at Seal Away. Simon, what can you tell us about this French bred preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf? The TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile on the dirt, but this, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Seal Away.
Yeah, Seal Away comes in from France. One thing he would appreciate would be about 4 more inches of rain between now and Saturday. I mean, he just relishes the soft turf. I don't think it's going to be too firm for him, but he's coming off a bang-up win Arc weekend in the Prix Jean-Luc Lagardère, where he won by 8 lengths, and a lot of that was in part to the soft ground. You remember that weekend? That was the excuse for Enable. She just couldn't quicken. It was very deep, very soft. He handled it, and he's a very good racehorse, but I think soft ground would enhance his chances.
Seal Away, bred in France, Chestnut Colt by Galloway, out of the Ken d'Argent Mercancy, bred by Guy Pariente in France. Back out here on the main track, Monomoy Girl. She is going to have a showdown in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff with Swiss Skydiver, and she is feeling it out here this morning, Simon.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she's always been a little bit of a handful, but you could just see before she went behind the trees there how she was kicking. I love that with fillies. They're expressing themselves. It shows, how good their well-being is and that they're feeling good. She's just a very good feeling filly here. And she's probably primed and ready to go. And that's the nerve-wracking part for a trainer, and especially in Brad Cox's situation like that. You got a 1,000-pound animal here with pent-up energy, and they're ready to go. They're primed and tuned to peak on Saturday. So, the whole bubble wrap analogy that Bob Baffert uses is exactly right. I mean, you just want to get them out on the track, get them back in the stall, and without anything happening. I mean, one little step, and Stanley Huff kind of talked about it with Global Campaign, can just finish it right there. If they step on that one of their foot or grab a quarter like that, it's over. So you want to make sure that they're walking square, they're not sidestepping, they're not dancing all over the place, that the hot walker has got a good hold of them in the barn when they're walking nice and straight so nothing can happen. It's a nerve-wracking time.
And here she breaks away from the pony horse. We get a better look at Monomoy Girl. If not for disqualification of the Grade 1 Cotillion back in September of 2018 at Parks, she'd be coming in on a 10-race win streak. That's how good she is. Appreciate Monomoy Girl. 14 career starts, 12 wins, never been worse than second. And on top of that, look at the signature wins, having taken the Coaching Club American Oaks, the Kentucky Oaks, and the Breeders' Cup Distaff of 2 years ago. Did not race at all last year. Comes back to the races this year and is 3 for 3, and now trying to win the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff yet again. On that question of who ultimately goes favored, it'll be interesting to see after the post position draw today what the morning line is set at, but you would imagine Monomoy Girl and Swiss Skydiver will be very close in the odds. But ultimately, Simon, who do you think the betting public goes for here? Who do you think would be the post-time favorite between these two magnificent horses?
Oh, it's going to be a tough call, right? I wouldn't want to be making the morning line on these two. I really wouldn't. I mean, very, very tough. I think ultimately, it might be Swiss Skydiver just by the fact, maybe she's, in the current year, she had a little more national prominence with a win and a Preakness. But I'd be splitting hairs between those two. But look at this gallop. You can see she's turning ahead. She looks around at everything. Very alert filly. And I'll tell you what, the exercise rider doing a great job here. He's got a long stirrup there. You don't want to ride too short because if she spins around pulling up or getting picked up by the pony, you're going to get unseated. And he's keeping his hands down nice and low. There is a strap around a horse's neck, that neck strap. And a lot of the time that's there, for the exercise rider, just to put their hands in there and keep them down. Because the minute you start lifting your hands off the horse's withers and neck, then it gives the advantage horse. They can put their head up and just go, and then you have no leverage. The reins start flapping in the breeze, and you've got no leverage. But he's doing a great job here, getting this filly around the racetrack. I know, I've worked in the barn for many years. Those exercise riders, that's the most nerve-wracking time, is the day after a workout when those horses have been in the barn for a day, that they have to go out there and pretty much put them in their slowest gait of the week, because the first day back you don't want to go too fast. So It's a true workout. I mean, just, tie a rope onto the back of a car, let somebody drive it about 25, 30 miles an hour, and try to hold on and pull it back.
Well, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, and it is a beautiful shot. But when she came by our set here, we got a closer-up look with just our eye, and she is shining like a new penny out there. Monomoy Girl, a chestnut mare by Tapizar out of the Henny Hughes mare Dramette, bred here in the Commonwealth of the Kentucky, putting her magnificent form on the line. Brad Cox alluding to it most likely would be the final start of his career. He said, I never want to just say that, but that's how they're building up towards it, and what a career it has been. Just the fact that she's here at the age of 5, you talked about this the other day, Simon. It's a real treat that Monomoy Girl is still racing. They didn't need to do it, especially with every race that she had won. So to repeat in this race and to do it 2 years apart would be quite an accomplishment to a resume that already was good enough.
Yeah, it certainly would. I mean, it'd be a tremendous feat, and hats off to the ownership group here for keeping her in training. There you go, the exercise rider now. Boy, I bet he can just let out exhale and a sigh of relief. Once you get hooked up with that pony, it eliminates a lot of the issues that could happen of getting loose or something happening. So he's just loosening the girth there, you can see, after exercise. So that's the strap that attaches the saddle. So the saddle doesn't move, but he's just letting it out, a couple of holes there so that filly can breathe and get her air back as she jogs back to the barn.
Oh, she looks magnificent. All these horses that we've been seeing, some of the main contenders here, have looked good, but Monomoy Girl attempting to steal the show with what we've watched out here. And there's lots more of our show to come. We'll be back with more TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm in Keeneland, right after this.
Hey, neighbor, we got to talk.
Well, Jay? No, he only comes to Bugle on race days.
Race days?
With the TVG app, every day is race day. You can place bets right in your phone, even stream live races.
Upcoming race at the Breeders' Cup.
I can have a day at the track whenever I want, right at home.
Coming through, guys.
Go get him, Mike.
Mike Smith?
Yeah, Mike Smith.
There's a new home of horse racing, yours. Get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to $250.
Catholic Boy, one of only 3 American 3-year-old colts in history to win Grade 1s on both dirt and turf, including the immortal Secretariat. A graded stakes winner at 2, 3, and 4, from coast to coast, from 7.5 furlongs to 1.25 miles. In 2018, the fastest 3-year-old in the country over 10 furlongs by internationally successful sire More Than Ready. Catholic Boy, standing at Claiborne Farm.
TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Keeneland.
For the second time in its storied history, Keeneland Racecourse will host the Breeders' Cup. The first was in 2015. But the tradition of Keeneland goes all the way back to its founding back in 1936. And as Keeneland has gone along the road of making history in this sport, it has become very clear Keeneland is racing as it was meant to be.
In the 1930s, Keeneland's founders set about to create a special racetrack in central Kentucky. Their vision? as outlined in the track's original prospectus, was to create a model racetrack to perpetuate and improve the sport and to provide a course that is intended to serve as a symbol of the fine traditions of thoroughbred racing. More than 80 years ago, a sequence of events set the stage for the founding of Keeneland. The first was the 1933 closing of the historic Kentucky Association track near downtown Lexington that left the city without a thoroughbred racetrack for the first time in more than 100 years. In the midst of the Great Depression, a volunteer committee of 10 thoroughbred horsemen led by Hal Price Headley and Major Louis Beard established the Keeneland Association and began their quest to return thoroughbred racing back to Lexington. At the time, a globe-trotting Lexington horseman named John Oliver Keene, Jack, was building his dream training center on a portion of his family's land west of Lexington. The property included a limestone castle and a barn, a mile and a furlong private training track, and a 100,000-gallon water tank. Keene descended from a family who received the property in a 1783 deed. Unfortunately for him, his grand plans had stretched his financial resources to the limit. After the Keeneland Association purchased 147.5 acres of Keene's farm in August 1935, members were anxious to finish the stone structure and convert it into a clubhouse, so they commissioned a design contest for area architects. The winning design included 2 large porch additions and a grandstand constructed entirely of wood at the request of Major Beard. Keene's original limestone structure now serves as Keeneland's clubhouse. Keeneland officially opened its gates on October 15, 1936. That day, more than 8,000 fans came to the races. They ranged from locals who simply wanted to see racing in their hometown for the first time in years to titans of business who brought some of their best bloodstock to compete. By the end of the 9-day meet, Keeneland had lost just $3.47 in its first year. Lexington, then a town of 46,000, had supported racing's comeback as the meet posted attendance of 25,337. And even with 15 million Americans out of work, those fans had taken a gamble or two, wagering more than $500,000. That Keeneland is such a special place is no accident. Grand thinking by Jack Keene, coupled with the shared aspirations of a group of prominent horsemen, and the careful stewardship of subsequent management led to the Keeneland that is beloved today. Keeneland's co-founder and first president, Hal Price Headley, summarized their intentions best with, "We want a place where those who love horses can come and picnic with us and thrill to the sport of the bluegrass. We are not running a race plant to hear the click of the mutual machines. We want them to come out here to enjoy God's sunshine, fresh air, and to watch horses race."
Keeneland Global Brand Ambassador Scott Hazelton telling you about the history of Keeneland Racecourse. Often when talking about Keeneland with Scott, he refers to it as the gem on the hill, and he is right. And this gem on the hill will host the Breeders' Cup for the second time. And because of the unique situation with no fans at the Breeders' Cup this year, Keeneland was awarded a third Breeders' Cup in 2022. We look forward to returning here every spring and every fall, and we look forward to being here, obviously, for the Breeders' Cup. Preparations continue for the Breeders' Cup, and Tacitus out on the track. We had a chance to see him yesterday, Simon. Also talked to trainer Bill Mott afterwards. He still has faith in this horse, and I have to say, he sucks me in every time. I always think this is going to be the race that Tacitus is going to show what he's capable of. But again, awesome in the mornings. Need to see a little bit more in the afternoon. But how's he look today to you?
He looks good today. This is something we haven't seen from a lot of horses, that they work, usually take a day off. He worked 5 furlongs yesterday. He's back out for an easy gallop today. You know, trainers will do that once in a while, depending on the horse. Sometimes if you leave a horse in the barn for a day, they get too fresh, and you know, the risk of something happening or injuring themselves obviously goes up quite high. So just an easy gallop. He's not going very far, just stretching his legs there. and pretty looking horse. You can see he's bounced back out of that work in good shape. Does wear a figure 8 noseband. You see those 2 leather straps across the bridge of his nose there, just to keep his mouth closed and keep the tongue under the bit. And yeah, he looks very, very good. But you're right, he sucks in everybody, Todd. You're not on your own there. If you look at his last 8 starts, I don't think his off odds have been higher than 5-1 in any of those. Majority of them odds on or at even money.
Yeah, the worst thing for Tacitus is when he's the betting favorite. So maybe now that he will obviously be a price in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, that's when he comes through. The ability is there, but is he now going to show it on the biggest stage that he's ever been on in one of the deepest Breeders' Cup Classics we have had in recent memory? Tacitus out on the track, and one of the last horses we'll see before the renovation break out here at Keeneland, so we'll still have a lot of the activity out on the training track. And we're going to take a look at Miss Amulet for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Miss Amulet, what can you tell us about her, Simon?
Yeah, Miss Amulet comes onto the track here as I just reach down and grab for my notes here. I just want to make sure I take a look at her on the track here first before we look at them, because like I said, these European horses, we want to see how they're behaving. And I tell you, I've been impressed with all these runners from Europe, how they are adapting to the different surfaces here and the different configurations. Usually it's a straightaway in Europe, but there is Miss Amulet. She's exclusively sprinted in Europe, so she's trying a mile for the first time. Now, I don't think that's an issue. You know, a lot of the times if you can run 6 furlongs, 5.5, 6, 7 in Europe, Todd, you can get a little extra distance here in the United States, because those are big, wide, straightaway 6 furlong tracks. And when you come to the tighter configuration here, it usually plays out well for those horses. But, you know, a lot of these Europeans will wear that quarter rug over the back of their kidneys, their hind end there, and just to keep them warm, keep their hair coat nice and slick and laid down. But she's jogging very well and behaving extremely well. But she does have that's a good race. The Cheveley Park historically has always been one of the better sprint races for 2-year-old fillies at the end of the year. And she was only beaten about half a length in it. So she brings in some good form. It's just a matter of how she's going to handle the turns. A lot of these horses, 1, have to handle the gate break with the bell, and 2, they have to handle the quick, tight turn that comes in front of them for the first time. Daughter of Sir Prancelot out of the Oasis Dream mare Sheena's Dream, was bred by Ringford Stud in Ireland. Miss Amulet preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Caton has covered a lot of ground on the backside at Churchill Downs, catching up with many trainers, and moments ago she caught up with trainer Brett Calhoun.
A jog day for Brett Calhoun's horses, and also a waiting game a little bit. Brett, talk about first how all 3, Mr. Money by my standards and Silver Dust, are all doing.
Everybody came out of their works very, very well. I was happy to see them on the road yesterday morning. They all jogged this morning. Everything looks very good, just like you'd want it to go. As far as Mr. Money, yeah, we were also eligible, but there was 3 horses in front of us that had first preference in other races, so it looks like we'll be in.
Talk about post positions first for the 2 outside the Classic. What you're hoping for?
Well, it's a real short run in the first turn in the mile race there, so obviously somewhere in the middle would be best. You know, you don't really want to be down the inside and everybody's pushing down hard, and the far outside you don't want to have to be one of the ones pushing hard to save ground in the first turn, so somewhere in the middle would be great.
And in terms of the Classic, for by my standards, is this a situation, you and I were talking about pace, where post position does become even more important?
Yeah, post position could be a little important in this race, even though it's 1.25 miles, in the fact that you just don't know how it's going to set up speed-wise. There's a couple speed horses in there, and you know, we probably want to be in the race a little bit. Obviously, we're not a pace setter by any stretch of imagination, but maybe a horse, you know, that's in a closer stalking position.
Talk a little about Gabe Tyas and what he brings to the table.
Well, Gabe's had a real good rapport with him, and obviously when he hasn't been on him, it's been a little different for us. You know, the horse maybe was a little unlucky at a break in Saratoga, but he knows that horse very, very well, and he knows how to react to the different pace scenarios or the break on that horse. And I think part of it is he just has a whole lot of confidence in him, so he'll ask him to do things that maybe some other guys wouldn't ask him to do.
Appreciate your time, Brett. And it seems earlier in the week seemed a little bit more stressful than right now, so to me that's a sign that things are kind of going in a forward direction for you.
Yeah, for sure. All the heavy lifting's over. We just got to continue to jump through all the hoops and the protocols. But as far as the horses goes, the stress has dropped dramatically.
Hopefully it stays that way. Best of luck.
Thanks a lot.
That's what I love about this show. Early on when I started out in horse racing, I had my nose buried in the daily racing forum, and a longtime horse player walked up to me and said, the answers aren't in there. And when you watch everything that goes on in the mornings, when you hear Stanley Huff talk about dealing with those foot problems of Global Campaign, yeah, not all the answers are right there in the racing form. It's what you're watching develop here in the mornings, the stress that these trainers go through, and then that moment where now they just need a little bit of racing luck and a good performance on the big day. On the big day of the Breeders' Cup, both Friday, November 6th and Saturday, November 7th, unfortunately no fans here, but you can still participate. Here is a wonderful contest. It is the Longines Prize for Elegance. We're encouraging you to get dressed up for the Breeders' Cup or use a throwback pic of when you dressed up to go to the races and then post that picture to the gram, Instagram, or Twitter with the hashtag MyBreedersCup and then tag at Longines. The contest closes Breeders' Cup Saturday, November 7th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. The judges will take a look at all the entrants and announce a winner at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, and there will be a most fashionable female and a most fashionable male that will win a Longines timepiece. Get involved in the Longines Prize for Elegance. And don't forget, since you're watching from home, the Breeders' Cup has a perfect way to celebrate from home, the Breeders' Cup Home Experience. To find out all the ways to make it a perfect Breeders' Cup at home, visit breederscup.com/at home. When we come back, we visit Madone, one of the big stars on Future Stars Friday. You're watching TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm and Keeneland.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, the best-selling big fan in the world. Big-ass fans, exceptionally engineered.
This gleaming chestnut wins by 6 on debut, with the promise of bigger things to come. Justify, he's on a dizzying ascent to greatness.
What do you do when the experts compare you to legends?
Justify has won the Kentucky Derby. He's unstoppable. He won the Preakness. Justify is the 13th Triple Crown winner.
You justify it.
We sold 2 gun runners. One was the highest priced gun runner filly in the sale. She was $750,000.
He's got pedigree, he's got a phenomenal race record, trained by a trainer that's made stallions in the past, and has a phenomenal female family.
Wouldn't shock me at all if he had competitors in the Breeders' Cup juvenile events at the end of the year. Anybody that's breeding a quality mare should certainly think about going to him.
$775,000, thank you.
Introducing the Equibase app with all new features, including Smart Pick, smart handicapping made easy. Choose your track, choose your race, and then go to Smart Pick. Select your level of risk, the size of your wager, and which of these 3 strategies you want to emphasize. Smart Pick will then tailor your very own selection and bet amount. It couldn't be easier. Smart Pick, one of the exciting new features in the Equibase app. Download it free of charge today.
What constitutes a great sire? It's not just a tremendous pedigree,
or high-level racing success. It's results.
By your side,
Independence Hall, Amalfi Sunrise,
Tiz the Law, Mara's Light wins the honeymoon.
It's Tiz the Law. He won the Belmont Stakes. He's gonna win the Run Happy Travers.
Constitution has it all.
Future Stars Friday, November 6th, 5 championship races for the Breeders' Cup. And here at Keeneland, we have Madone out on the track, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, a horse that we've watched out in California, Simon.
Yeah, she's a very nice filly. I like her a lot. I like the way her running style. She just sits back there, doesn't expend any unnecessary energy during her races, and then kicks it on when the racing matters. Got a true turf running style, lays off the pace, comes late. Excuse me, she's been here a couple of days longer than some of the recent California shippers, and jogging back the wrong way there on the track, she looks well. I think she's coming into this race in good shape, Todd. And you know, if there is 2 or 3, 4 horses up front that set a pretty quick pace, she's going to be one of the beneficiaries of it, I think, coming from way off the pace.
Saturday Night Live had coffee talk with Linda Richmond. We've got Twitter talk with Christina Blacker.
Todd, thank you very much. Yes, our Twitter talk brought to us by our friends at ABR, America's Best Racing.net. All kinds of information there if you'd like to take a look, whether it's handicapping tips, fashion advice, some blogs. You'll just want to check it out in the next couple days because they're updating their content, it seems, by the minute at this point. So let's jump into that Twitter talk. We're going to start off first here with a nice picture and a tweet regarding Monomoy Girl. She's kind of been the star this morning, hasn't she? As good as she has looked. Same for Swiss Skydiver, who she will take on in the Distaff. But Holly Marie tweeting, Monomoy Girl vanned out from Churchill Downs Sunday afternoon for BC20, one of her faithful caretakers, Jorgito Abrego, by her side. Was this the last time we see her in Louisville? To be determined. I just love looking at that smile on Jorgito's face. You can see how happy he is, and you know these horses make every member of the team just so proud when they show up on the big days. So good luck to them. The TAA tweeting, thank you to Donegal Racing for supporting the TAA during BC20. Your support makes a difference in the lives of thousands of OTTBs. Learn more about our partnership with the Breeders' Cup and how you can help by following the link on their tweet. And I should say there are so many owners and syndicates that are donating not only to the TAA but also to new vocations. This was just one I grabbed, but really hats off and props to all of the owners that are giving back coming up here for BC20. And then Breeders' Cup Ambassador Carson Kressley tweeting, throwing it back to my 2015 Breeders' Cup look at Keeneland. Let's see your BC20 style for a chance to win a Longines timepiece. We've talked about this a little bit in the show. You can post a picture of your at-home race day look, or, as Todd mentioned, also a look from the past. Tag Longines by 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, November the 7th. And Todd, with that forecast, I might have to call Carson myself for a little help or fashion advice. Everything I have for Friday and Saturday is warm. Coats, furs, fake furs, you know, name it. I'm going to be all bundled up. Might have to call him for a little bit of extra help. And before I send it back to you, TIEA awards are being announced on Thursday, November the 5th. I just wanted to quickly remind you about that. You can watch online. Jill Byrne is going to host this show virtually this year, and good luck to all of the nominees in each category.
Christina, thank you. And as we look off to the side here from our set, the tractor's out on the track. Maintenance going on here, obviously, and what a week for this track maintenance crew as they have to deal with all kinds of temperature and weather, from rain to cold to warming up throughout the week. For more on that story, Joaquin Jaime.
Well, there's been a lot of people that racetrack, but nobody's had quite the morning like track superintendent and Jim Pendergast. Jim, temperatures went below freezing this morning. What time did you and your crew members start working on the track, and what'd you see?
We had part of the crew out here about 3:30 this morning. I came in about 4:30, and it really didn't start to freeze until about that time. So we weren't sure exactly when it was going to start, but it started around 4:30, getting a little crusty. And then by the time we got close to opening time, we knew it was going to be a little too cold at that point for us to be able to open on time because it was just starting to freeze. So we left tractors on it until 7:30 when we got it where we wanted it to be.
So how far behind schedule are we roughly here because of that?
It's not going to be too bad. We lost an hour and a half earlier, but we're going to pick that up later in the day. We're going to let them train on the main track until 10:30, and we're doing a 15-minute renovation instead of 30, so they'll pick up a little extra time there.
I saw one of your team members just a second ago poking around in the dirt, sticking something down in the dirt. What exactly was he looking for?
That was TDR. We're taking moisture measurements to see where we are this morning with moisture before we worked our break.
And then what about the long-range forecast? I know you track superintendents. You're better than the weatherman. What does the long-range forecast look like for us here in Lexington?
It looks great right now. It's going to get warmer as we go through the week, and I think we're looking at 70 by Saturday. So I don't think we have any worries. Tomorrow morning might be a little bit of a concern. Right now we're seeing 34 degrees. If it drops a few below that, it might create a problem for us, but otherwise everything looks great.
And then what about the turf course? It's been a long time since we've had a race run on the grass. What's the latest update you can tell us on the turf?
It looks really good. We've been off of the inside since about the second week of our race meet. So the inside 20 feet looks really good. We've repaired the outside part of it, and we got grass coming up there. So I think by Friday we're going to be really good with it. It's got a lot of moisture in it right now, but that's going to go away as we go through the week, and we'll probably be firm by the time we get to Friday.
Jim, thank you. I appreciate the time, and we'll let you go ahead and get back to work during this renovation break.
All right. Thank you.
And that's what I was wondering about the most, Simon, is that turf course, because if we have temperatures that could be freezing on this main track, you just wonder if that moisture then gets frozen in that turf course, and as it thaws out, it still has that give in it. So that was really surprising to me that he expects by Friday we could actually have a firm turf course.
Yeah, I mean, that's good news. Obviously, usually we say Keeneland has a sand-based track that dries out pretty quickly, but that's in the spring a lot of the time, more daylight hours. We've just had daylight savings, right? Clocks went back, so it reduces the number of daylight hours, reduces the chance, the time that the moisture can evaporate and get out of that turf course. So that is good news. Hopefully the sun can come up and just keep getting warmer through the week. We don't want the turf to be an excuse for anybody, really.
Yeah, and it is one of the fairest turf courses in the country. That's why, one of many reasons, they are having the Breeders' Cup here, so the Europeans will definitely have a chance just as well as their North American-based counterparts. You have a chance to make some great money over 2 days at the Breeders' Cup. Let's check out the wagering menu for these 2 days. And don't forget about the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. For those of you who are tournament players, if you want to test yourself against the best, this is the place to do it. It is the 2 best days of racing, the best of the best in thoroughbred racing in each division. The best handicappers are here, and it is a $1 million prize pool. And these are all the live races at Keeneland. Remember, you got 5 championship races on Friday. That's the Breeders' Cup races, but you also have the supporting undercard. And then on Saturday, 9 championship races, 14 races overall. 2 days in which you have this wagering menu on Friday. Just looking at the Breeders' Cup races, there's something for everybody. They have done a great job putting this wagering menu together. And don't forget about the guaranteed pools that are offered each and every day, with the biggest guarantees happening on Saturday. Your wagering menu on Saturday for the 9 Breeders' Cup Championship races there. In race number 4, the first one will be the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf Sprint, a pick 4 beginning there. But remember, with that undercard, you're also going to have those big opportunities. The 12th and final will be the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. That is a look at all the money-making opportunities ahead here for the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, Friday, November 6th, and Saturday, November 7th. That's this Friday and this Saturday. Evico out on the track for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This one being sent out by trainer Peter Miller.
Yeah, former European-based runner that came in from Ireland and now in the care of Peter Miller. A couple of starts out in Southern California. If not familiar with the form, I'll just kind of rehash it for you. Debuted at the end of the Del Mar meet and finished second in the Del Mar Juvenile Turf. That was a huge effort coming from way off the pace, and then came back with a sharp win in the Zuma Beach opening weekend at Santa Anita. Got up by a nose, a horse who, likes to come from off the pace, but in start number 2 was a little sharper, laid a little closer, and just got up in the final stages. And it looks like this horse is on the training track, and it looks like going the wrong way here, but yeah, now into a jog. Really, you're not meant to gallop the wrong way. I don't want to be drawing attention to that out here on live TV. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. Maybe they got permission to do that. But once in a while, when it's quiet out there, you can gallop the wrong way. And just, I think on the training track, that's probably feasible at this point. But yeah, just very professional little 2-year-old.
Yeah, what happens on the training track at Keeneland stays on the training track at Keeneland. Shh, nobody tell. We'll be back with more TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup right after this.
This is Karen's land. It's been here a long time, and so is she, along with Mojo. The first fence post went up here. Now there's 5,000 of them. After the storm, she started the cleanup here. This is more than just land. It's home. Karen runs with us on a John Deere 3E Series tractor, because who says a day's work has to take all day? Nothing runs like a Deere. Search John Deere 3E Series for more. John Deere is the official partner of the Breeders' Cup World Championship.
Hey, neighbor, we gotta talk.
Well, Jay? No, he only comes to Bugle on race days.
Race days?
With the TVG app, every day is race day. You can place bets right in your phone, even stream live races.
Upcoming race at the Breeders' Cup?
I can have a day at the track whenever I want, right at home.
Coming through, guys.
Go get him, Mike.
Mike Smith?
Yeah, Mike Smith.
There's a new home of horse racing, yours. Get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to $250.
3/16 to go. Monomoy Girl to catch. Florent Giroux goes to an all-out drive. Blue Prize trying to stick with her. Midnight Bijou continues to move down the center. Monomoy Girl at 16th to go. Blue Prize, Wildcat finishing well on the inside. Then comes Midnight Bijou. Monomoy Girl has won the Distaff.
And Monomoy Girl will try and win the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff yet again, but having not raced at all the following year after that highlight to her 2018 campaign. She'll be taking on Swiss Skydiver. What a showdown on Saturday. That will be in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. On a morning like this, you love to have a cup of coffee. Yesterday, we had a cup of coffee and started a conversation with Liz Crow, Gabby Gaudet, with the second part of that cup of coffee and conversation.
And we're back with Liz and continuing the conversation, especially about Monomoy Girl. We'll start with her. What a superstar. And I've mentioned this before in the past. It's not normal. It's very rare that you see a mare be able to come back after what she has had to overcome and still be as good, if not better, than she was before the layoff. Can you just speak to that and kind of describe Monomoy Girl as a horse through your lens?
I think that would take a lot longer than a couple minutes, but she's just an unbelievable animal. To be around her is just to be around one of the most intelligent horses I've ever been around. I mean, even when she was hurt, the way she took care of herself and the way she recovered was different than I've seen from any other horse I've been around. And to be back faster, stronger, better as a 5-year-old, I mean, she's running faster thoroughgraphs and Ragsons than she did as she was a 3-year-old when she won 5 Grade 1s. That's pretty remarkable. I mean, you just don't see that from thoroughbreds very often. But as far as like what she means to all of us, it's hard to put so from Paul Sharp to myself to Brad Cox, Florent Giroux, not that he was already on the map, but she's helped our careers so much, and we're very thankful.
Well, as much as as your career has evolved, she has evolved too. Can you kind of tell us how she has changed, if at all, from the time that you originally saw her up until now? Obviously, she changed physically because that was a long time ago, but kind of her evolution as a horse.
I think she's gotten a little more confidence and almost a little more ego about her as she's evolved. She knows she's special, and she knows everyone in the barn feels that way when we're around her. And physically, like you said, it's been amazing to watch her change from a yearling to a 5-year-old now. She's every year gotten bigger. She weighed 1,250 pounds when she left WinStar, which is massive. And she's, 16'2" probably. And if you look at her physically now, you're just like, wow, is that a colt? She just is so unbelievable.
What did you like about her in the beginning?
It really wasn't much to knock on her as a yearling. I think the reason she wasn't a super high-priced yearling was because her pedigree, she was by an unknown sire, kind of out of an unknown dam. But physically, she was pretty awesome. She had a great hip and a great shoulder, a really nice presence about her. And she brought $50,000 over her average for the stud fee. So it's not like I was the only one that liked her. So it was clear that she was kind of a really pretty yearling.
What's kind of the camp's thoughts and feelings going into this year's Breeders' Cup?
Well, it's a little emotional because we know this is probably our last race with her, but she could not be doing any better.
It's been so fun to follow her throughout the career. But Liz, I also want to ask you about Aunt Pearl. So you bought her out of Tattersalls, and what did you like about her in the beginning, and how could you kind of describe her as a horse?
I actually thought she looked more like an American physical than she did European. Actually, I put her picture up on Twitter, and a couple pinhookers in Ocala were like, wow, that looks like a horse you could take to the 2-year-old sales. So she had that really fast, nice hind leg on her, and she didn't look very much like a European prospect. I thought, most of these horses have to breeze on the dirt over here. They breeze on the dirt 98% of the time. So you need a horse that can handle that surface, and she looked like she could. Just a really powerful, strong filly that isn't very big, but looked like very precocious, like she had a lot of speed, and that she's proved to have that.
Do you think that is going to be a challenge moving forward, is her to be able to relax and control that early speed?
Yes, I do think that's going to be something that we're going to have to see her develop from 2 to 3. We have those 2 Wesley Ward horses coming over that have gone one turn, and they're going to be speed, and she's going to have to figure out, maneuver her way around that and see if she can sit off or if she's going to be on the lead. But I think moving forward from 2 to 3, that'll be something she'll have to develop the ability to sit off.
All right, Liz. Well, it's been so much fun catching up with you, and best of luck with both Aunt Pearl and Monomoy Girl and the sales and everything else that you have to do. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time.
Thanks, Gabby.
Our cup of coffee with Liz Crow. Still waiting for the horses to get back out of the racetrack. And we have found Midnight Sands preparing for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. So we'll go back to that jockey camera in just a little bit as that horse comes out onto the track. And there's a look at Midnight Sands, who we were talking about earlier. Has not won since Dubai. And those were minor races over there. So this horse will be a big long shot out and at the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And Simon, we can get more perspective out here today as the sun starts to rise and warm up a little bit here. And Gabby down in the middle of the action.
Todd, I was just walking out to the track with Raging Bull, and on the pony alongside Raging Bull is Baldo, Chad Brown's assistant. And I was talking to him about this particular horse, and he said that, we can go on. Sorry about that. That was Chaos Theory next to me, so helping Chaos Theory move forward here today. You never know what's going to happen when you're on the track. Raging Bull, so going back to him, he has been breathing fire. He has been aptly named Raging Bull because that's exactly how he's been acting each and every day. And Todd, I haven't really had the opportunity to talk about him. He has been probably top 3 of horses that have been impressing me most so far the past couple of days. He just looks sensational, and he has been acting so sharp. He's been wanting to bite everyone, kick everyone. This is a horse who usually is a bit temperamental, but I think it's kind of been upped a little bit so far this current week. And Baldo saying that he ponied him out to the track a few days ago, and he didn't put kind of the lead shank on him the past couple of days. He needed to put it on him here today just so that he would settle. But it's very fun to kind of be out here and get to know these horses and their personalities and their idiosyncrasies. And Raging Bull, he looks to be very sharp, but he's also just his personality. Don't get near him, Todd. If you're ever in the opportunity of getting near Raging Bull, don't go too close because he will bite or kick you, and he means it.
And Simon, usually the good ones are like that. They are temperamental and they will come after you. But that's, when Gabby is talking about seeing their personalities, that's another part to the show that I hope is enlightening to people. But you can see it in the way he handles himself on the racetrack. He thinks he's boss.
Yeah, he does. Look at him. He's all, he's got himself underneath himself, and he's all, just a powerhouse. He's got those bell boots on the front leg. First time we've seen those. That's those little plastic covers that go over the feet. We've been talking about horses grabbing quarters like Global Campaign. That's to prevent that. You can see they're like little protective covers, like shields that go over the foot there. And he does have that lead shank on. Usually a pony rider just has a leather strap that slides through the ring of the bit. So if the horse, once you let the horse go, you just let go of one side and the horse can just jog away from it. Here in this case, I believe they're just jogging, looking at the equipment they got on. He has the lead shank on, which actually goes through the horse's mouth or over his lip and is attached. It's a more permanent fixture, which suggests to me that they'll be just jogging around here, but it gives them a little more control. Again, you're trying to minimize the risk, right? A trainer's job is just minimize the risk of something happening.
Remember what Gabby just said. Of all the horses she's been watching this week, Raging Bull is in her top 3 of the ones who are making the most positive impression. Owned by Peter Brandt, bay horse by Dark Angel out of the Mr. Greeley mare Rosa Bonheur, was bred in France by Dayton Investments Limited. Back to Magic Sands. Now out on the track here, or Midnight Sands, out on the track here for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And we take you along as this horse prepares with the jockey camera that we have. Midnight Sands' last win coming February of this year in Maidan, although not a group event. This horse did compete as a 2-year-old in group events in England, including the Coventry Stakes, and finished 14th in a field of 23 at 125 to 1.
Yeah, the issue here is class, right? I'll be surprised if the winner of the Mina Rashid at Maidan last year could take down the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Stranger things have happened, but we'll see here. I guess we're just giving you a nice perspective here of, the jockey cam. One thing you see immediately after the break, look how fresh that track is. Only a couple of hoof tracks in front of them, though, where horses have gone over. So this is nothing very fancy here, nothing more than an open gallop, it looks like. But yeah, veteran horse, 4-year-old, son of Speightstown, but certainly going to be a massive odds if he even gets in the race here.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's going to happen today at the post-position draw. There's a lot of news around horses. When we've been showing everyone here in the mornings, we'll put up this horse is pointing towards possibly 2 races. They have first preference and then their second preference. And then there are horses who decided maybe not to go to the Breeders' Cup at all and will point for another spot. So a lot of that is going to be big today later at the post-position draw. You're going to want to tune in for our coverage of that. We're going to find out who is actually in a lot of these races, as we are relying on those pre-entries. Future Stars Friday, got a horse out on the track. Here is Dirty Dangle, who is getting ready for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint.
Yeah, not a very big horse. You can see kind of the size difference there, but just a young horse. And I can see looking at him move here, he kind of got a little bit of a higher knee action here galloping, but a pretty mover. I mean, very fluid. I've been really, really impressed across the board this week how these horses are presenting themselves. And that should be no surprise, really. I mean, you're talking about the biggest and best races on a world stage, top class connections. This has been the target for such a long time. They should all look good, and so far they do.
2 for 2 up in Canada, including a win in the Woodbine Cares Stakes on September 19th. Daughter of Not This Time could be taking on the boys and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Not This Time, well represented in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies with the $1.3 million purchase. Princess Noor, Dirty Dangle, was purchased for just $25,000. And out here preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. And as Simon and I have been talking about the last couple of days, this has drawn a spectacular field. The purse tells you everything you need to know. The fact that 2-year-olds get to run for $1 million going 5.5 on the turf shows you how much the Breeders' Cup has grown and how much interest and turf racing here in the United States, and particularly in the sprint division. Let's leave Dirty Dangle and bring you another horse. This is a look at Danja, older horse, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Turf.
This is at the training track. This is Danja, the German-based son of Teofilo, who's got a pretty good resume. I mean, he's won 4 out of 10 starts. He was 4th last time out in the Longines Grosser Preis von Baden Grade 1 behind Barney Roy. That's pretty good form. Barney Roy is a very consistent runner for the Godolphin crew. And this is a horse who did win the Gran Premio del Jockey Club in Italy last year. But, you know, when you're talking about European racing, when it comes to German group races and Italian group races, they're probably just a notch below as far as quality goes when, you know, you come to England, Ireland, France. So probably lacks a little class here against this group, but it seems to be settling in okay and nice and relaxed on the training track.
Danja, daughter of Teofilo out of the Mount Livermore mare Dynamore, was bred in Germany by Gestut Karlschaff. Let's go to Gabby Gaudet.
Todd, I'm here with exercise rider Paul Madden, who was just aboard Midnight Sands. And Paul, how did everything go up there?
Great, yeah, great. I think I can vouch for most riders this morning and say that horses are probably feeling a little better with this cooler weather. But yeah, no, everything is good. Track is good. We were delayed a little bit, but didn't really inconvenience much. But no, everything is good.
Okay, so you and I were at the Gap the other day, and you had to hop off, fix some equipment, and then you hopped back on without getting a leg up. You told me that day that it was something that was mandatory to graduate the Irish Jockey School. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was mandatory, but we were. It was the Army Equitation School that used to teach us, you know. And some I had limited experience, some had none, but. Yeah, they'd make you jump up from the ground, and if you didn't jump up, you weren't riding that day. So you learned super quick that it was the best thing to get right for sure.
You were also a jump jockey at one point.
Badly.
A bad jump jockey.
I was pretty poor, Gabby. Yeah. So yeah, that was. I did it for probably 2 or 3 years. Rode in Ireland for a bit. Rode in England, but then I've been here since '07. So. I'm in my 13th year now here in America.
Any people we would be familiar with that you rode with?
No, I can't say.
No?
No, most of them are kind of retirement age now, I think.
But you have to be a little bit crazy, right, to be a jump jockey?
Yeah, very much so, yes. Yes, very much so, yes. It's a fine line between, stupid or brave, yeah.
And you've worked for Brendan, you said 4 years going on 20. What is kind of that relationship like between you guys?
Very good. I have utmost respect for him professionally and personally as well. You know, I've known Brendan a long time, and I was the one that approached him about the job. I used to gallop for him a little bit, but I've been his assistant now, or one of his assistants for over 4 years now. So it's great, and we've got some, to be a part of the Breeders' Cup is huge. You know, I'm proud to be a part of it, really.
Absolutely, it takes a team. We'll let you go. Thank you so much for letting us follow alongside you.
Thank you, Gabby. Appreciate it.
Our thanks to the entire Brendan Walsh team to give you a look at what it's like to be out here in the mornings preparing for the Breeders' Cup. A horse that we showed you with Harvey's Little Goyle the other day at Churchill Downs, working in company with that horse, was Casa Creed, who is pointing towards the mile on the turf. He's out on the main track here this morning here at Keeneland. And Simon, this is what I was talking about with this post-position draw. We've mentioned Lee Einsiedler before, good friend to us and to TVG, and the huge donation he made to the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund, if you remember that, towards the tail end of the Del Mar meet, sending $50,000 to them. He has wanted to get Casa Creed into the mile, but he needs help. He needs horses to go elsewhere. So while we're watching this horse prepare in the morning, the big moment's going to come in the afternoon, whether or not this horse can get in off the also eligible list. I guess in a roundabout way, I'm asking you as a trainer, and this is Bill Mott's horse, what's that like to train for a race you might not even get into?
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, literally the one time of the year it happens is at the Breeders' Cup. So you just have to train and plan accordingly as if you're going to run. You have to do that. There's no other way around it. You have to make all your preparations right up to entry time, and then you'll see. And then once the entries come out this afternoon, I think Casa Creed probably will get in. I know Bo Recall, I think, is going to exit out of the Breeders' Cup mile if my memory serves me right. So there's a good chance he'll get in. But if for some reason he didn't, then you go to plan B tomorrow. Maybe there's, sometimes these racing officers write races on the undercard, or maybe next week across town that he'll have an opportunity. But look, he's doing well. Does he need to improve against some of these? Yeah, I mean, I think he was compromised a little bit last time by that inside draw. Maybe if he got a better slot last time out. He was post one in the Shadwell Turf Mile at Keeneland last time out.
Yeah, he found himself on the lead in there, and while he's tactical, maybe being on the lead is not what he wants to do, but we do know this, Lee Einsiedler wants to be in the Breeders' Cup Mile on the turf with Casa Creed, and that answer will be coming later this afternoon. Here's a look at Essential Quality, part of Future Stars Friday and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And as we watch Essential Quality out on the track, taking a look around here, and Essential Quality. But, you talk about how horses handle themselves, and you can see the curious nature of the younger horses here, Simon. And I think sometimes, obviously watching Monomoy Girl and watch her go around the racetrack, she's clearly a pro and gets it. But we kind of forget in the mornings these 2-year-olds are still in their process of learning all of this.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's very early in their career, and a lot of these are obviously at the head of their class, and they're very advanced for their age because they're in this situation. They're at the Breeders' Cup World Championships because in just a couple of starts they've proved themselves to be very good at what they do. In the case of Essential Quality, I mean, 2 blowout wins. That was visually very impressive last time. Whether it didn't match up to numbers or time or whatever, take that away. Just look at how this horse performed last time out. And this is a major threat in here. 1, because of the extreme talent this horse has, and 2, is proven over the surface and the distance already. I think that goes a long way. So, very professional son of Tappet. And with pedigree and looking at this horse, as far as from a physical standpoint, he's only going to get better as time goes on.
A homebred for Godolphin, Essential Quality. A Grey Roan colt by Tappan out of the Elusive Quality mare, Delightful Quality. As Simon mentioned, a win last time out in dominating fashion in the Grade 1 at Claiborne Breeders' Futurity, and that off a 6-furlong dominating win in the debut over at Churchill Downs. Essential Quality making a great impression out here this morning, preparing for the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile presented by Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. Ask me, ask any of the crew on my set here by the winner's circle. After today, we need some cocktails, and we're probably going to need some conversation as well. So the perfect place to go is on Wednesday, this November 4th, 7:30 Eastern Time on Breeders' Cup Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Cocktails and conversation with our own Brittany Urton and our good friend Nick Luck. Remember, cocktails can't start until after 10 a.m. Eastern Time. 10:01, absolutely, get after it. We'll be back.
consistently versatile with 19 Grade 1 winners on every surface, from 6 furlongs to 1 1/4 miles, all over the world. 3 new Grade 1 winners in 2020.
Echo Town wins the Allen Jerkin Stakes.
And Lady Spikespeare has gone on to win the Natoma by 3/4, Alda.
All purpose, all places, all power. Spikestown.
TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Keeneland.
If you want to play the Breeders' Cup, there's one place you want to do it. With the leader in advanced deposit wagering, it is TVG with no fans on site. Lots of people going to be wagering at home this year, so go with the name you can trust. We're so sure you're going to love being a TVG account holder. Get this, a 50% deposit bonus. You heard that right. Get up to $250 on your first deposit. Details at tvg.com/best bet. Okay, it used to be, it wasn't that long ago, and now it kind of shows my age, but I kind of came of age with the 1987 Breeders' Cup. I had just gotten into the horse racing industry, and I can remember to this day watching from my dorm room at Buena Vista College in Storm Lake, Iowa. One of the Breeders' Cup Classics, I think, is still standing the test of time. It was the first time that 2 Derby winners had met each other in the burgeoning Breeders' Cup Classic. It was Ali Sheba and Ferdinand. You had Chris McCarron aboard Ali Sheba, and you had the great Bill Shoemaker aboard Ferdinand. But there was also a horse who was leading, turning for home, in Judge Angelucci. The drama, the stage was set, and Tom Durkin called it perfectly. Still one of the best Breeders' Cup Classics we've ever seen, 1987.
In the gate for the 12th Breeders' Cup Classic. And they're off. French Deputy Star Standard strikes out for the lead immediately, and he is aggressively ridden here. Star Standard to the lead, and Cigar is keyed up today. Very competitive. It is right up there close for the inside.
It was such a good setup. Like, that was my best, was it not? That's why I'm going to be drinking at 10:01. So 1987 was not in New York. Star Standard was not in there, but 1987 was out in California, and the 2 Derby winners, the one from the previous year, the one from the current year, it was Ali Sheba, who in 1987 took the Kentucky Derby despite that scary stumble. It was 1986 where Ferdinand won the Kentucky Derby in surprise and with a amazing trip worked out by Bill Shoemaker. And now here they were meeting in the 1987 Breeders' Cup Classic. Here's Tom Durkin with the call.
No, the fans here in Southern California today are rooting for the 56-year-old Hall of Famer with a call. Let's go to Tom Durkin.
And they're off. And Ferdinand is out there early toward the
inside. Candy's Gold is sent, and Judge Angelucci, and they pass us for the first time, and it is Judge Angelucci now who's out to take the lead, but Candy's Gold is sticking right with them early. Corey Black trying to nurse that speed with him on the inside. Skywalker is up close early. He's a Sorrows 4 wide, a Fleet is 3 wide, and toward the inside it's Good Command, a gap of 4, and Ferdinand is settled into 7th position, and Gulch is alongside him. Ali Shiba is now running in 8th. He's about 9 lengths off the lead as they head for the backstretch. Bold Arrangement trying to take hold of this track. Crypto Clearance has 1 horse beaten, and that is Nostalgia Star, who is content to trail at this time as they move up the backstretch. Judge Angelucci and Candy's Gold moving together on the lead. The opening quarter went to 23 flat, 46 and 2 for the half. Those two are still going at it. Good Command kept close to them toward the inside. He's a Sorrows running 3rd, and Ferdinand now has asked for more run. He'll need racing room though. He's on the inside 5th. Skywalker is alongside him, and now Ali Shiba begins to roll from the back of the pack, and the Fleet has dropped back. There's a half mile to run in this Breeders' Cup Classic, and it is Candy's Gold toward the inside, Judge Angelucci, and Ferdinand to pick him up now on the outside 3rd. Good Command is putting in his run toward the rail. Skywalker is still in it. He's only 3 lengths off the lead, and Ali Shiba continues to pick him up on the outside with a dramatic run toward the leaders. They are at the quarter pole here at Hollywood Park, and it is Judge Angelucci on the outside. Candy's Gold toward the rail. Ferdinand and Ali Shiba coming on from the outside. Good Command is in behind horses. They're less than a furlong out. Judge Angelucci desperate. Ferdinand right there. Ali Shiba on the outside. Ferdinand. Judge Angelucci on the outside. Ali Shiba. Ferdinand has the lead. Ali Shiba, a final surge. The 2 Derby winners hit the wire together. Ferdinand and Ali Shiba in a dramatic photo finish in the world's richest horse race.
Great horse races are like great songs or other works of art. They stand the test of time, and they still get to you. And that 1987 Breeders' Cup Classic is one of my favorite Breeders' Cup races of all time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And in this age of social media and YouTube, I like that future generations are going to be able to go back and look at a race like that. And Hollywood Park, no more, but the Breeders' Cup continues on, and we look forward to a Breeders' Cup Classic that could definitely live up to the billing of 1987. Let's get into this year's Breeders' Cup Classic report, starting with Christina Blacker.
Todd, the sun just coming up here on the West Coast, and no news is good news, right, with regard to the 3 Breeders' Cup Classic contenders here for Hall of Famer Bob Baffert. Maximum Security and Authentic had their final works 2 days ago. We saw the last work from Improbable yesterday morning at 6:30. They are all on a plane tomorrow, headed direct to Lexington. There's a possibility we might get to see a few of them out here jogging as we're about to wrap up this renovation break here, so we'll hope to get you a little bit of that video. But Bob Baffert is traveling today as well. Have not seen Jimmy Barnes here either. He was hopeful to get back on the road after that injury that he sustained at the Kentucky Derby to his wrist. He was hopeful to make the trip for Breeders' Cup this year. So it's quiet here on the West Coast, bubble wrapped and ready to go, as Bob told us yesterday. Joaquin?
Yeah, Christina, Higher Power, more Southern California connections, has been here for trainer John Sadler for about the entire month of October. So coming up in about 5 weeks that he's been here getting prepared for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And he had his final workout the other day with assistant trainer Juan Leyva aboard, going 5 furlongs in 58 and 4. We saw him out on the racetrack earlier today. As expected, he wasn't doing a whole lot. I went back to the barn just a second ago. He was getting a bath just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. And just as Christina mentioned, at this stage of the game, a few days before race day, no news is good news, and that certainly seems like it's the case for Higher Power Scott Hazelton, who's looking for his first victory since the 2019 TVG Pacific Classic.
Well, global campaign still over at Church Showdowns, and we expect to see him here in coming days off of his Grade 1 victory. A great conversation that Kate and Bradar had with him earlier today in talking about to Stanley Huff and what he's had to overcome in order to get to this point. And then Tacitus, we saw a really nice workout from him yesterday, working 5/8 in company with his Grade 1 stablemate in Channelmaker. And we also saw him back out on the track this morning, and he looked lovely in his gallop, a nice easy gallop out this morning. So very positive sign when you consider consider that this horse worked 5/8 just yesterday and back out on the track this morning. Gabby Gaudet.
Yeah, Scott, and he had a very strong gallop out, and he just was back on track today and looked very fresh. So it looks like all good signs for Tacitus. But I'll check in with Tiz the Law. Of course, yesterday he did just walk in the barn. 2 days ago, he put in his final workout for trainer Barkley Tagg, and he galloped 1.5 miles under Heather Smullen earlier this morning. I saw him. He walked past me on his way out of the, or way off of the track, I should say, and he looked great. Again, no news is good news for Tiz the Law. He just looks like he's doing so well. In fact, he's doing so well, he's treated with a little bit of a mid-morning snack there, grazing this morning as well. So he looks confident, he's maintaining good flesh, and even his groom, who is around him constantly, Juan Barajas, he said that this horse is just so happy right now. So all good things for Tiz the Law. And with regard to title ready at Churchill Downs for trainer Dallas Stewart, he's of course making his preparations for the Breeders' Cup Classic as well. He worked 2 days ago, I believe, and then today, this morning, he did hit the track very early. In fact, Caton Bradar said that he hit the track. He was the first horse on the track at 5:50 earlier this morning and did, in fact, jog. And he's going to be one of those closers in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But for more about what's going on with regard to the Classic at Churchill Downs, we check in with Caton Bradar.
Indeed, Gabby, Dallas got the early bird award and got the worm with the title ready hitting the track when it first opened. And then in the second set, it was by my standards for Brett Calhoun, all three of his horses doing the same thing in their first day back to the track after working by my standards, took an easy jog around the track. He will gallop tomorrow morning here at Churchill Downs, and then on Wednesday, another light training session before shipping over to Keeneland to complete his preparations. Speaking to Brett earlier today, the mood a little bit lighter than it was earlier in the week, and seemingly very positive, as it seems like he's a bit relaxing, Brett is, as he heads towards the Classic with each passing day. Also, Tom Stata having an easy day as well. He was out very early this morning jogging his first day back after his breeze. We spoke to Al Stahl earlier today in depth about the comparisons between Blame, his Breeders' Cup Classic winner, and now this horse, who culminates a very long campaign on the racetrack, a very rewarding one as well. I asked Al if there was a particular post position he'd like to see later today in the draw for the Classic for Tom Stata. He at first shrugged, it didn't seem like it would matter much, and then looked to the picture on the wall of Blame in victory. Seeing that saddle towel, number 5, said 5 would suit us quite well. Todd?
Kane, I don't know if you've cloned yourself, but you're everywhere. You've done a phenomenal job for us at Churchill Downs. Thank you. I mean, you are the definition of great hustle out there. Thank you for covering all those horses out there, especially now, obviously, with the big prize, the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Simon, when you look at how this year was so uncertain, but yet horse racing continued on, all these races got shifted around, it is nothing short of a minor horse racing miracle that we have the field that we have for this Classic.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Look, you turn the clock back 6 or 7 months, and I mean, we didn't even think we were going to have a Breeders' Cup maybe, or even horse racing period. But the one thing about it, it's been the one sport that has continued throughout this pandemic, and we've touched on it in our TVG shows about how a unique setup of horse racing has allowed that to continue, with all the athletes being in essential in their so-called bubble. I mean, it kind of mimics what the NBA did down in Orlando, in that the tracks and the horses and the people, you know, they're all stabled in one certain track for the majority of the time. Obviously, there is shipment and movement, but as time has gone on and, you know, restrictions have been lifted, that's enabled horses to move around, and it's enabled the Breeders' Cup World Championships to be in front of us. So, yeah, I think it's a tremendous testament to not only the horsemen and horsewomen, but also the racetracks and the management have gone out of their way to accommodate and make allowances and gone, you know, really far and beyond what they needed to do to make this happen.
Technology has made so much possible during this pandemic, and technology is going to change the way that you watch the Breeders' Cup. If you have not downloaded the Watch TVG app, you need to change that right now, because look at what we have for you for the Breeders' Cup. You can choose 1 or multiple of our live streams that will follow the Breeders' Cup contenders from the time they enter the paddock until they walk into the starting gate. A camera will be dedicated for each starter across all 14 races, allowing you to keep a very close eye on all the horses as they warm up for their World Championship moment. Download the Watch TVG app today. Available in the App Store, also through Amazon and Roku. Download the Watch TVG app. Back out to the racetrack. Here is a look at Simply Ravishing. Phenomenal story about how she was bred and where she came from. Really, if you just look at that part of the story, to be here at the Breeders' Cup is an accomplishment, but don't mistake that for the fact that she can absolutely run and has been dominant so far in her career.
Yeah, she has. I mean, she's just crushed her opposition. She started on the turf with a nice win, but since she's gone to the main track here, it's been lights out. This is Robbie Alvarado galloping her here, and you can see she is feeling really, really good here, and he's got a good hold of her here, and she's moving exceptionally well. Again, it's just a snapshot of what Ken McPeak has done throughout his career. Just a $50,000 purchase. We've talked about Swiss Skydiver, how she was only a $35,000 purchase, but yeah, she's giving Robbie a tough time there. Sometimes, Robbie's a very good horseman, don't get me wrong, but it's sometimes, exercise riders know these horses inside and out to gallop, but he clearly has been getting on her the last couple of mornings we've seen her, and she's just feeling good here.
A $50,000 purchase, as Simon mentioned. Even more astonishing, bred by Meg Levy, who told us her story out of a mare that she purchased for $500. The end result was Simply Ravishing. What's that Simon?
Oh, yeah, well, she's getting a little aggressive here. She's running off a little bit. You don't want to do too much here. This is happening in real time, so we're watching this, and Robbie had his hands full there. Thankfully, the track's a little quiet, but yeah, he wants to get her slowed down here, and finally he's got it back into it. Yeah, he's slowing it down here, so it was okay. I was some anxious moments there for a second.
Okay, let's get instant reaction. Scott Hazelton is with trainer Ken McPeak.
Yeah, Kenny, watching this happen out here on the track with Robbie in the saddle, what were you thinking as she was feeling as good as she was?
Well, Lalo, our exercise rider at Churchill, normally gets honor every day, but then he's tasked with being at Churchill with Crazy Beautiful and King Fury, who are coming over this afternoon. So we'll get Lalo back over here in the morning, and he'll get on her. She's strong. She's always been strong. It didn't surprise me, but Robbie, he got her tuned down there, and no problem.
How has she been since her blow-up performance here in the Darley Alcibiades?
Pretty uneventful. It's a basic routine like we've done. It isn't complicated, and she had a nice work over the weekend. Robbie actually worked her this past weekend, and I think he'd just rather work her than gallop her. But he's helping us out this morning because we've got people spread out a little bit. But it's a pretty special filly. I mean, if we could replay next year what Swiss Skydiver did, would be a heck of a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
Have we seen the best of her yet, Simply Ravishing?
I don't think so. I think she wants to go further than a mile and a 16th as well. She's not only a filly with a huge long stride, she's got a ton of speed, which is really a big advantage. And at this point, she's never been headed in the morning or the afternoon. So this weekend is going to be a tough race. There's some good fillies in there.
And same can be said for Swiss Skydiver with the Distaff being in play right now. How did she settle in coming over from Churchill Downs back here to Keeneland?
Piece of cake. The unique thing about us being stabled here is we're in the exact same barn that we're always in, because we keep a year-round division here at Keeneland, and all the horses that I've got for the races this weekend have actually lived in that shed row, whether it was this past spring or the year before. I mean, Swiss Skydiver started over there in the bottom as a 2-year-old. And that Rice Road is to some extent home for us.
All right, Kenny, we'll catch up with you tomorrow because I know Crazy Beautiful, King Fury, they're still at Churchill. They're going to come over here, but we got to get over to Gabby because she's with Simply Ravishing, and I'm sure a very tired Robbie Alvarado.
Yeah, Robbie, you tired? Was she pulling?
Yes. There's a lot of horse here. She pulls really hard.
How different is she galloping in the morning than breezing when you really have to control her?
Well, that breezing is kind of give and take, but she still pulls while she's breezing. The other day I got on her, she went a minute flat and just as slow as I possibly make her go. She's very talented filly, a lot of horse, very powerful.
All right, I'll let you go. And he's gonna team up here. She's going to be walked off the track. She was actually walked onto the track, and they were telling me that they knew they might have been in trouble walking up to the track because of how she was pulling even on the horse path. So yeah, she is fired up. She's fresh, but as Kenny said, this is her normal temperament, but it's always good to see her, feeling really good. And it was funny from my perspective where I'm standing in the 7/8 chute. I was listening to Robbie say, whoa, girl, the entire time trying to get her pulled up. It was not easy, but he did a great job.
Something's got to give in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. You look at Day Out of the Office, 3 for 3. Princess Noor, 3 for 3. Simply Ravishing, 3 for 3. And all those horses having won their races easily. So tactically is going to be a big thing here with horses maybe finding the ability to rate or having the experience around 2 turns, something that Day Out of the Office does not have. Princess Noor coming from the West Coast. Ultimately, I would think Princess Noor is favored just because of Bob Baffert's reputation, and Princess Noor has won with breathtaking ease, but this is going to be a really tough task for anyone, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, Princess Noor, I think you're right, Todd, will become the post-time favorite because of the Baffert reputation and visually how she's looked. But back to Simply Ravishing, just real quick there. It just goes to show you, and it underscores the difference between working a horse and galloping a horse. You can see, how hard it is for these jockeys. These jockeys are incredibly talented riders. They're very, very good at what they do, but I mean, it's a different ball game, right? When you're trying to keep a horse at a slower pace compared to a workout when you let them, drop their head a little bit. Yes, on the face of it, it would seem easier breezing a horse, but you've also not got to go too fast or too slow. It's a different skill set, and I think it was evidenced there watching that gallop. Robbie probably doesn't gallop horses every single day, knowing, that riders don't do that, and it just goes to show you how hard it is and what a different skill set it is from being a regular exercise rider and a jockey.
Simon, put a bow on it for us, though. With what you saw here this morning, if you were somebody who likes Simply Ravishing coming in, would you be concerned that maybe she lost a little bit on the track this morning?
1,000% no. That is not a problem. I mean, there was a couple of strides there when you heard me on camera go, uh-oh. I mean, if I was a trainer in the stands, that's the kind of the nerve-wracking moment, the precarious moment, where you've got about a 1/16 of a mile to watch and realize, are they going to be able to gear that horse down? Or is it just going to take off and do too much? But I would not be concerned one little bit with what I saw this morning.
Yeah, Ken McPeak echoing those sentiments as well. He's not concerned, and so Simply Ravishing continues on to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We continue on to a big race on the Saturday card. That is the mile on the turf. March to the Arch was second, and the Group 1 Woodbine Mile last out up in Canada. Prior to that, did take the Grade 2 King Edward. March to the Arch out on the track this morning here at Keeneland.
Yeah, let's take a look at March to the Arch, just galloping there, and certainly got a good race record as you talked about. I mean, hasn't really converted in the big races as such, and has kind of got to get out of that, the comfy confines of the home base of Woodbine. Did come west in the Shoemaker and was very disappointing behind Raging Bull, but the effort behind the Woodbine Mile and Starship Jubilee got him here. That's certainly a good effort. I think a mile is the perfect distance. It's going to be a big number, but a horse who presents himself well on the track and galloping very nicely there. A total contrast to what we just saw with Simply Ravishing, who was very eager and keen and ready to go, just feeling good. This is a relaxed 5-year-old that knows what he's doing right now.
March to the Arch has been to Keeneland before. It was the previous fall meet of 2019 when he was in the Grade 1 Shadwell Turf Mile. He had a rough trip that day, finished 5th, beaten a length when it looked like he was hopelessly beaten. And March to the Arch rates a big long shot into this year's Breeders' Cup Mile. We'll be back with more of TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by WinStar Farm in Keeneland, right after this.
It's not how we fly, but how we fall that separates the pioneer spirit from the rest. This is what's remembered, what remains, when all else has been stripped away.
A Grade 1 winner on both dirt and turf, War of Will became a classic winner with this victory in the Preakness Stakes. This year, he added turf credentials to his resume with a determined victory in the Grade 1 Maker's Mark Mile, a winner and Grade 1 placed at 2, multiple graded stakes victor at 3, and Grade 1 winner again at 4. This son of war front has proven his class at every level. A classic winner with a Stallion's pedigree, War of Will, standing in 2021 at Claiborne Farm.
Breeders know that English Channel offers unparalleled value in its class. With 9 crops of racing age, English Channel has sired 6 champions, 5 millionaires, and 23 graded stakes winners. A perennial leader among turf stallions, English Channel has also sired 9 individual Grade 1 winners on both the turf and dirt. English Channel, the best value at stud.
Practical Joke was all business. He won the home.
Practical Joke always showed a lot of ability. He showed a lot of heart, a lot of determination. Right from the first breeze, he identified himself as one of the best in his crop.
Practical Joke down to the wire, the Champagne.
Practical Joke took both the Hopeful and the Champagne Stakes, and he's a fast, tough, precocious 2-year-old, trained on, showed even better form at 3.
It is Practical Joke in the Allen Jerkins.
He's going to be a horse that no commercial breeder can leave off their list.
This is Karen's land. It's been here a long time, and so is she, along with Mojo. The first fence post went up here. Now there's 5,000 of them. After the storm, she started the cleanup here. This is more than just land, it's home. Karen runs with us on a John Deere 3E Series tractor, because who says a day's work has to take all day? Nothing runs like a Deere. Search John Deere 3E Series for more. John Deere is the official partner of the Breeders' Cup World Championship.
Honor AP showed a lot of talent in the sense that he got over the ground really nicely with a huge stride, a length of stride you can't believe. And then you look down at the stopwatch and you go, oh my gosh, he actually did that? I think Honor AP was the most talented of the 3-year-old colts that I had, with Giacomo, Tiago, AP Warrior. This conformation is just perfect for a racehorse. He was one of those athletes that was just ahead of this class.
It's not how we fly, but how we fall that separates the pioneer spirit from the rest. This is what's remembered, what remains, when all else has been stripped away.
Uncle Mo is let loose, and look at him stride away. Uncle Mo, big leaping strides. He's opening up. Boys on Toscanova as second, but this is an overwhelming performance by Uncle Mo, the son of Indian Charlie. John Velasquez just got to point him in the right direction, takes a look back. Uncle Mo, superb in the juvenile.
And here is that champion 2-year-old who dazzled at Churchill Downs in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You got Ashford Stud, Coolmore's Ashford Stud, and what an impact he's made in the breeding shed here in Central Kentucky. He is the sire of Nyquist, a champion 2-year-old, and has turned into quite a successful stallion in his own right. And he's got plenty of representation in this year's Breeders' Cup, Harvest Moon in the Distaff, Yaupan in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and Golden Pal for Wesley Ward in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Uncle Mo just continues to make such an impact in this great sport.
Had a chance to spend some time with Charlie O'Connor, Director of Sales, longtime association with Coolmore. Went out to Ashford. He took me around, got a picture with Uncle Mo. Then he took me into his office, and he's got these dry erase boards all around where it lists the appointments that these stallions have. And Uncle Mo, obviously, one of the most popular. There's still some spots left, so check that out with Charlie O'Connor out there at Coolmore America. We return now to Churchill Downs. One of the most entertaining interviews we ever do on a consistent basis are the interviews with Dale Romans, and Kate Bradar has them now.
Oh, Todd, you should have been here just a few minutes ago. Talk about entertaining conversations. But Dale has been watching his horses train on the track. Just now, Dale, we were watching Girl Daddy come off the track, and you had some pretty strong things to say about her.
Oh, she's such a nice filly. I think she's one of our strongest horses going in to this weekend, and she's doing great. Couldn't be doing better. I mean, it's a good race, but it's a short field, but a lot of good fillies. But, I mean, she couldn't be doing any better.
She seems to be just beyond her years as far as experience, maturity, and also a really fluid stride.
You know, she's been good from day one. They started talking about her when they first started breaking her in Ocala. when I called over there, they'd always talk about the filly. How she only bought one filly, how good she was and what she was doing, and she's lived up to her billing. I mean, both races are spectacular.
Also out on the track, we saw the 2-year-old colts, and they also breezed pretty nicely. I know it was a little bit in jest because there weren't many workers at the time, but you mentioned that I think Sitting on Go might have had the fastest workout of the morning.
That the other day they did, yeah. When he worked the other morning, he works great too. He's doing so good. And Smiley Sabaka was out here. We're not going to run him though. We're going to keep him out. But Sitting on Go, I mean, it's the further the better. I think 2 turns is going to help him. If you go back and watch his Iroquois, he just gobbled up ground around a turn. It didn't look like it's a quarter pole. He might not even hit the board, and he just blew by everybody. Reminded me of his daddy when he won over at Keeneland.
Dale, you were in the position of having an awfully nice 2-year-old before, and I know that you've always had high praise. Things didn't work out the way you kind of envisioned last time around, but tell me about Sitting on Go. Is this the type of horse that you think not only just Breeders' Cup, but maybe bright future, or are you still hunting for that horse?
Well, you're always looking for the great one, but this horse has done everything he's supposed to do. He ran, he wasn't going 5/8 of a mile at Ellis Park, which I didn't think there was any chance he could get up going short like that. And they said if you watch that race, I mean, he's 6 or 7 lengths behind at the 8th pole and just blows past him. And then what he did in the Iroquois, he just galloped around. That was a good field of horses. So I don't know where the limit's going to be with him. He just keeps getting better and better.
And then Sally's Curlin and Mr. Freeze, they also look very strong on the track.
They're both training good, too. They're both doing great. I mean, Sally's Curlin may be a victim of pace. We have to have some pace in front of us, but it looks like it's there. And Mr. Freeze, he tailed off a little bit after the winter. He had a great start to the year. He tailed off a little bit in the middle, but he came back and ran huge in the Fayette the other day. If you go back and look at last year's, or the beginning of the year's pattern, we ran him in the Pegasus, and he ran second, ran big, came back and ran a great mile after that. Probably the best race of his life. So it's kind of the same pattern going into this weekend. And Sally, I mean, she just needs a little help up front, and she couldn't be doing any better either. It seems to get better and better. It's exciting to watch her run. I mean, she's liable to be 10 lengths behind the last horse going down the backside Saturday, but she'll be running down the lane.
Speaking of running, you pack up and ship off, move your show on the road to Keeneland today?
We're going over. We're leaving here at 12 o'clock. Everybody has to be in Keeneland for the Friday races by 10 o'clock tomorrow. So instead of getting them out super early and rushing over there, we're just going to take everything over today and set up and let the games begin.
Always a pleasure, Dale.
Yeah, thank you.
And Todd, he had his game face on today, gave us some great information, but you are right as far as entertainment. There's always something to be learned when we get a chance to chat with Dale.
And he's been very kind to open up his barn to us. We showed you that World Horse Racing feature about some of the equipment that he uses on the cutting edge to monitor the heart rate of horses in his barn. We wish Dale Romans the best of luck coming up in the Breeders' Cup. And Christina Blacker out in California for us. And Christina getting ready to head to Lexington, speaking of having to put everything in order.
Yeah, that's right. Final finishing touches all complete here in Southern California. It's been great to be here and just sort of keep an eye on the West Coast horses, but we've dotted all our I's, crossed all our T's, and it is time to travel back east. So certainly looking forward to it. I will be on a plane tomorrow. I will join you guys for the show on Wednesday and Thursday there from Lexington, and of course be a part of the Players Show on Friday and Saturday. Todd, I'm envious of everybody out there. I can't wait to kind of get boots on the ground and to see some more of these horses up close and personal myself.
Yeah, you are an ambassador of Keeneland, so you know very well what this facility means to racing, and we look forward to having you here for the Breeders' Cup. The post position draw coming up later today. We still have a couple of horses out on the track. 2 horses coming over from Japan, Jasper Prince amongst them, son of Violence, that was bred here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky out of the Bernardini mare Ambitious Journey, bred by Hillendale, and has amassed about $700,000 in career earnings. And Simon, we've seen a lot of the Japanese horses. We've also seen that how they get ready in the mornings very different than a lot of, say, the American counterparts.
Yeah, there's a lot of time spent before they come out to exercise. And look, it's a little easier when you've only got 2 horses to train as opposed to a stable of maybe, 30, 40, 50. In the case of some of the big barns, you have to use the time efficiently. That track is only open for, 3 to 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours. But the Japanese, historically do spend a lot of time walking before they exercise. We've seen it when we've made our trips to Tokyo, and they do it here. So they'll walk and walk and walk and come out on the track. And this is very much the norm here, relaxed. And we see that a lot. So I like the appearance of the way these two have shipped halfway around the world and make an appearance here at Keeneland. But from a form standpoint, I mean, they're up against it, I think. Look, they've done very well, the Japanese, in shipping horses around the world recently in the last several years. But on face value, I think these two would be up against it here.
Yeah, it really seems more of a sporting gesture. Certainly not even ranked high in their respected divisions. But Ping Zhang and Jasper Prince, we are very happy to have them here for the Breeders' Cup representing Japan. Okay, these mornings are one thing, but the afternoon is a big moment coming up. We have the post position draw today, and you will see that live on TVG. We're going to get you started before we turn it over to our broadcast partners at NBC, Brittany Urton and Nick Luck. We are going to have the draw show preview. Gabby Gaudet will be with me along with Scott Hazelton on site here at Keeneland. So again, 4:30 Eastern time, getting you ready for the draw show, and then we turn it over at 5 o'clock Eastern time, and you'll watch all 14 championship races be drawn, 5 from Friday and 9 on Saturday. I think we established it was a cold morning here at Keeneland, but the arrivals continue, including horses from all over the world. We took you out onto the racetrack, and we showed you close up just how the preparations continue for the Breeders' Cup. Thank you for watching TVG's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm and Keeneland.
They say the harder the work, the greater the reward. And this is hard work. It's the hours put in before dawn and after dark. It's the sacrifice, the sweat, the failure, and the faith. This is our industry. This is our life's work.